Zoom recording. All right, welcome to Polk County Real Estate Investing, coming to you from beautiful Lakeland, Florida. I'm Adrian Smoot, and I am the host tonight. And in a second, we are going to have Bill Cook as our presenter for the evening. And thank you so much for choosing to spend your evening with us. I am going to quickly go over our disclaimer. Let me find it within our corporate sponsors here. I should have had that pulled up already. There we go. Here's our disclaimer. This is a very fun legal thing to read. I'm going to give you the abbreviation of it. This is for information purposes only. Don't trust anything I say, especially anything Bill says. Do your own research, due diligence. Bill, myself, all of our members, no one here is giving legal advice, accounting advice, or any other financial advice. You have to go home and do your own research. Basically, it's trust, but verify. So take the information, do some more homework, and then go and put it to work. Next, let me stop screen sharing mine. And we are going to get into our evening with Bill Cook. And sorry, I do not have your bio pulled up. I have too many screens here.
Don't worry about the damn bio.
I'm going to let you start screen sharing.
Okay, I'm going to start screen sharing.
What I want you to know about Bill Cook is I think we originally met, man, I'm going to say almost 10 years ago. And I went door knocking with you, learned a ton, got to go door knocking again, and now become very good friends with Bill Cook. He's a great teacher. He's fun. He's entertaining, and he truly cares about teaching. And that's what he's here tonight, is to teach us. And everyone sees Kim there. We all like to say that we wish Kim was here, but we'll take second best to Bill. Well, how's that for building you up, Bill, and then just bringing you right back down?
That's fine. And do you have a good picture of me and Kim full size on your screen?
Yes. So again, I want to say real quick, ask questions throughout the evening. Bill loves interacting. He does much better when you're interacting and asking questions, and you learn a lot better if you ask questions. So with that, let's give Bill a very warm welcome, virtual applause. Bill Cook.
And thank you. And again, I want to make sure y'all know I cannot see faces anymore. All I can see is what you're seeing on your screen, so I can't see who's there. And I'll tell you that my beautiful wife just pulled up. So we are working right now. One of the properties we'll go over tonight is at 209 Green Acre Lane, and she's been there all day. We're turning that property into corporate housing. So pretty excited about this. So over the last 2 or 3 days, she's bought about $25,000 worth of furniture for that property. And that's on top of about $145,000 rehab we just did to it. So anyway, I'll have her stick her face into this. But anyway, my real point is this. I do want you to ask questions. So feel free to interrupt me. I don't want you to wait until the end of the meeting to ask me about something, because more than likely you'll lose the question. And I think your question, when you ask a question, will help other people that will have a similar question. So let's get started. So first of all, y'all need to know that this is not something that I do by myself. Kim and I are a husband and wife team, and we do this together, and we each have our areas of responsibility. So an example of that is Kim is in charge of the rehabs, not me. So I handle usually kind of finding the properties, though she also finds properties. I usually handle the deal structuring. I'm the organizer. I take care of the records and the notes, and have a girl named Tara who helps us with the books. And all the stuff you see come out from us, the emails and putting together the seminars, that's Kim at work. So we each have our own area of responsibility. So several times tonight, by mistake, I'm going to use the word I, like I bought or I rented. It's not. It really is we. This is a team business. And the other thing you need to know is I learned from 3 of the very best teachers in the country. I got real fortunate in 1997. I found Dyke Spotiford, who's up in Marietta, Georgia. And from Dykes, I found Jack Miller, who was down in Tampa, Florida. And from Jack, I found out about Pete Fortunato. And then that also led me to David Tilney. And that also led to John Schaub. And those have been my primary teachers, but mainly it's been Jack and Pete on the deal structuring side, and it's been Dykes Botiford on the asset protection side. And so I just got lucky. And to this day, I still go to their seminars whenever they teach. Now, Jack passed in 2009, but Pete's still going strong, and Dykes is still teaching too. In fact, I had lunch with Dykes today. We have a secret place we go for barbecue, and we meet there pretty regular. So don't think that what I'm saying is stuff that I invented or I came up with. I'm just passing along things I know. So think of putting Jack in a blender and Pete in a blender and Dykes in a blender and David and John in a blender and me in a blender. And so I don't know who did what or said what. It's just a culmination of all the stuff we learned. So tonight we're going to be talking about deal making and an inflationary market. And one of the things that happens, like right now, people are worried about buying properties because of inflation. And when the properties are going down in value, in other words, you have a deflationary market, people are scared about buying properties in a deflationary market. And when the market's really, really hot, people are scared about buying properties. And when everything's coming to pieces, people are scared about buying properties. The thing is there's never a bad time to buy properties. And that's kind of what tonight's about. The whole idea is to be able to structure safe deals. And there's not just one way to buy a property. There's lots of different ways, and you can structure accordingly. So tonight, though, we'll be talking about what structures work best in this market. So here are some of the creative structures you'll see tonight. All right, we'll be going over those creative structures tonight. Also, I'll show you the fastest, cheapest, and most effective way to get face-to-face with sellers and make written offers. And my beautiful wife is just walking in the door after a very hard day of work. But anyway, I'll stick her head over here in a second and she'll say hello. So tonight's program is what makes an inflationary market different from all other markets. And in a simple phrase, everything costs more. So on the rehab that we just did at 209 Green Acre, and again, you'll see how we bought that property back in like 2011 or 2012. Tonight, you'll see that deal. But we just did $145,000 rehab to it. And if we would have done the same rehab 4 years ago, it probably would have cost us about $90,000. So because of inflation, everything from paint to the painter to the light switches to everything just costs a lot more. And that's what happens when you have inflation. And you just have to structure accordingly. So here are the deals, the structures you'll see tonight. There'll be master leases. There'll be something called pure options. There'll be options. There'll be owner financing, a subject to deal, and also something called structure stacking. And what structure stacking is most of the time on almost every deal that Kim and I have ever done, we didn't just use a master lease. It usually involved a master lease, maybe owner financing or agreed to owner financing or agreed to subject to deals. There was an option work involved. In other words, we didn't use one specific deal structuring tool to make a deal work. We used multiple tools to make a deal work. And that's what happens in the real world is you don't just use a single tool. You don't just do a subject to deal. There's going to be different tools involved to make that one single deal work. And that's what we'll be talking about tonight. And you'll see that in action. So we talk about, yeah.
Okay. Are you going to go over, let's say that I'm new and I have a rehab and it's like and when you're new, it's always it's a pretty big rehab. Are you going to talk about how maybe they should cushion themselves or for price increases or anything like that? Or what do you do with that
tonight, I'm strictly talking about deal structuring. So as far as on how to do a rehab, that's not what I'm covering tonight. And if you're a new investor, one of the smartest things you can ever do not every time, but most every time I tried a new deal structuring technique, new deal structuring tool, I brought in an experienced investor, gave them half the deal and had them look over my shoulder. And I've done that again and again and again. And that's how I knew what was coming because I didn't know what I didn't know. And books can go so far, but bringing someone into your deal the first time you do a subject to deal or a master lease or an owner carry, people that are experienced, the gray hair and bald heads, they just know what they're doing and they can guide you. And it always has been worth the trade-off of part of the deal in order to gain their experience and their knowledge and their know-how. So Susan and I will not be covering rehabs at all, just strictly how we'll be talking about deal structures. Okay. So in this market, people are looking, and I hear a lot of talk about what makes it different, but let's really look at any market. What makes this market and any market the same? I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to if you have a pen there, write down the answer. So in your area, a 5-mile circle around you, where you invest, are there kids being born? Are there people dying? Do kids reach school age? Are people moving away? Are kids going away to college? Do people get fired? Are they getting promoted? Do people get married? Do they get divorced? Are people moving to Lakeland? The answer is yes. But are people also moving away from Lakeland? And the answer is yes. So do people win the lottery and millions of dollars suddenly? Yes. Do people go broke and lose everything they have? Yes. So I want you to understand that our job as real estate investors is not to buy, sell, or rent houses. Our job is to solve people's real estate problems. And do you see that this screen is full of would-be, could-be problems? All you have to do is go find them. And once you find them, our job again is to help people solve these problems. And don't ever think, well, the market's really hot or it's really cold or it's mediocre or interest rates are too high or they're too low or inflation's up or it's down. Don't let that be the driving force whether you get out and you go talk to a homeowner or not, or you go out and talk to a seller or not, because life is happening to people at all times right around you. So in any market, do some people need to sell quickly? Yeah, of course they do. And in any market, do some people, do they want to buy a home that they can't afford? Well, of course there are people like that. And in any market, are some people forced to sell and they really don't want to sell, but they're being made to sell for different reasons? But what if you could help these three groups of people? Do you see where this is what structuring is all about? These are the people that you need to find. So where do you learn creative deal making? Where do you go? And this is why you want to join your REIA. So I'm really excited to hear that Polk County is going to start meeting back in person, because, Zoom is okay when you can't meet in person. But if you can meet in person, that is a better way to do things, because face-to-face is what the human race has been doing for about, 3-4 million years. We've been meeting face-to-face. That's what we do. That's what we do best. It's not texting and talking on phones and emails and Zoom meetings. It's meeting face-to-face. Right now is a good example where I'm looking at a green dot and I can't see anybody. And I feel like, I'm missing a big part of the conversation. Or when I teach, I usually walk around a room a lot. I can see when someone gets a little bit confused, and I know to, answer that question before they even have a chance to ask the question. I know how to answer just by looking at someone's face, but I can't do that today. So join Polk County REIA, join, but don't just join, attend the meetings, whether they're Zoom or they're in person, but attend these meetings. And finally, and this is most important, is volunteer. One of the ways I got to know Adrian so well is he volunteers. The way I've got to know Susan so well is she volunteers. I see them a lot. Joey English is on this phone call. And when I had a REIA, Kim and I had a REIA in Georgia, and Joey was there and he was volunteering and helped me with sound, did a lot of things to help me out. But he volunteered right from the get-go, and that made him known to me and made him known to a lot of other people. So make sure that you volunteer and work. Don't just show up, and people get to know who you are. So let's first move to answering the question. Kim, you got to stick your head over here and say hello. You can't see anybody, but look at the green dot. Hello. Thank you. So she'll be walking back and forth in the background as she gets stuff unloaded. So what killed creative deal structuring? Because in 2009, creative deal structuring was alive and well as how we were all doing our deals. But something, one thing that happened in 2009 is we lost Jack Miller, and he was a prolific teacher of creative deal structuring, and he passed away in October of 2009. And so that was a primary teacher that we lost. Everything that you see on TV today, it can trace its roots back to Jack Miller and John Schaub going on the road back in the late 70s, teaching people how to make a living, be real estate investors with single family homes. So there was no John Schaub, there was no Robert Allen, not John Schaub, but was it in Carlton Sheets or Robert Allen or all the people you see on TV or all the shows you see or Flip This House. None of that existed till those two guys went out and everything generated from them. But when we lost Jack, we lost a great source of information. And this is kind of what's happened since about 2012. So this is kind of when the deal structuring began and we saw it start to wane. So think about it, and you might want to put it in the chat session, who's been started investing after 2012, because that's when the market turned. I think in Florida, it probably turned around 2011, but in Georgia, it turned in 2012. And for the past 10 years, think about what the economy's been like. So we've had record appreciation. In other words, growth in real estate, value growth in real estate, like never before. Our interest rates have been lower than ever before. Record housing prices. So what houses are selling for, record. And rents have gone through the roof. They're higher than ever before. So when you think of this, when you look at what's going on here, do you understand that you don't need to know how to creatively structure a deal? You don't need to know, because if you buy a house today and wait 1 year because of appreciation, the property is going to be worth more. So and all the shows on TV, when you go to HGTV and you watch all those shows, do you see any shows called Hold This House or Rent This House or Option a Property or Financial Freedom by Holding Real Estate? No, it's always about flipping. It's about buying and selling. And most of the people who are on the circuit, they go around teaching, selling the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 coaching courses. They're all about quick flips. They're all about wholesaling and flipping. That's what's been driving the market since 12. And that's one of the things is we've had 10 years of up. Do you know how many times in the country's history we've had 10 years of up on real estate? Try never, not one time. So we're in rarefied air. And because of that, when people are making their offers, almost everybody, they only have one tool in their toolbox, and it's called the big damn hammer. In other words, 70 cents on the dollar minus expenses. And that's how you make your offer, all cash. Whether you're going to be wholesaling the contract or doing the deal, that's just the offer that's being made. And people just got lazy. The thing is, the big damn hammer works when the market's appreciating quickly, or you can get low interest rates and houses are easy to buy. But what happens when the cheese moves? What happens when the economy changes or things level off or start down? Do you see that maybe the big damn hammer is not the best way to go? So I'm not saying don't have the big damn hammer offer in your toolbox. Kim and I use it on a regular basis, but most of the time it's not the best way to structure the offer to where the person you're dealing with, what they're looking for, the solution they need. The big damn hammer is not what's going to work best. So I want you to see an example of that. So let's move right into creative deal structuring, and you're going to see us use creative structuring to sell a property. So this is our ranch that we sold back in 2018. It's in Adairsville, Georgia. You should know that I invest in Cartersville, Georgia, about a 5-mile circle around the Cartersville, Georgia Walmart. That's where we've always been since '99. And that's where all our properties are. So we don't do a big area, not multi-states. You should also know that Kim and I are not big deals. We're not whiz-bang real estate investors. We're mom and pop. We would do somewhere between 12 to maybe 14 deals a year on average. And that was really about it. So I didn't like to have 2 or 3 or 4 deals rolling at a time. I like to have about one going. And that I was happy, sometimes 2, but not much more than that.
Bill,
yeah.
Can you elaborate why you stay in such a tight area?
It's easy. So I'm in one county, one courthouse, one electrician, one roofer, one carpenter, one magistrate judge, one heat and air guy, one plumber. And I know that area. So I'm a door knocker. I've always been a door knocker. That's how we find our deals. So I go, it takes me about 3 months to go around our area. And then I start over again and just go around it again and again and again, about 4 times a year on average. I go around my 5-mile circle knocking on doors. And it made things very simple. So there was a time when I was in different counties and it just spread me out too much. And the most important thing to do is, do we get paid for doing this?
No.
No, you get paid for being face to face. You get paid for solving problems. And by working in a very tight area, and you'll see a deal here tonight, a couple deals tonight, but one in particular, when the seller called me up, because I was inside my 5-mile circle, I was able to make it to his house in 15 minutes, just drop what I was doing and go over. But if he had been 4 counties away or 3 states away, I couldn't have done that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So in this case with this deal, what we're going to be looking at is a buyer wants to buy this house and he cannot afford to buy the house for the sale price. So I want you to ask your question. If you ran into this, how would you structure that deal? So someone wants to buy your home, but they don't have the funds to buy it with. They can't get the loan for it, yet you want them to have it. So when Kim and I put this house up for sale, she found people that she wanted to buy this, Jacobus and Carla. She wanted them to own this house, nobody else. And she said, Bill, I don't care if I make $1 a year. I want these people to own my house. So that was the marching orders I was given. And I'd been out teaching that year. I was in the motorhome and I was traveling around the country teaching. And when I came home in June, I think it was like June of 2018, my job was to make this deal work. Again, Kim said, I don't care if I make $1 a year. I want these people to own my home. And you should know that this is a 34-acre horse ranch, has outbuildings, beautiful green grass. This is not what we bought. This is what we turned it into. So that's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath brick ranch. Great, great property. And it was worth about $500,000. So let's look at how we got it sold. But I'm going to begin with, and again, I want you to put your answer in the chat. So I want you to think that this is your house. Fair market value is $505,000. Okay, that's what the property was worth in 2018. And we were going to sell this for all cash. And we put it on the market with our realtor at $497,900. But I chose our realtor. His name is Rayburn Taylor. I chose our realtor because he understands how I think and that I think creatively, right? And don't say no to any offer. Bring it to me. So I was willing to sell it for $479,900, or I would sell it for $575,000. So well above $75,000 above the price, right? So that's a big jump. So how can I sell a house for more than it's worth? And the answer is I was willing to give owner financing. So they were going to give me some money down and then make me payments of about $2,500 a month over the course of 30 years. But because I was given owner financing, I could command a higher than normal price and at a higher than normal interest rate. Or I would trade the house. So if someone had something I like better, maybe it was storage buildings, maybe it was an apartment complex, who knows what it was, but bring me something that I like better. I'm willing to trade this property for whatever it is you have. And Rayburn knew this. Or third, I would take $300,000 all cash. So I want you to write down in the chat, what would you do? What would you take here? Would you rather take number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4? So the all cash $497,900, or the $575,000 owner financing, or trade, or the $300,000 cash. Write that down. I'm just curious what people say. And Adrian, if you can let me know what people say.
We have number 2 from Chris, Rosemary number 2, Andrew 1 is the best, Greg, all good options. I would like number 2 personally. I think other people are tied. We have Tony at 1 and 3.
You notice everybody's avoiding number 4.
Cash. Number 2.
Have you noticed number 1 and number 4 are both cash offers, both cash sales?
Yeah. So what's the difference?
$197,900. Thank you for asking.
Right. But what's the difference in terms?
$197,900. That's the difference. You want the rest of the story?
Yeah.
Okay. So remember the orders that Kim gave me. I want these people to buy my home. I don't care if we make $1 a year. So here's how this played out. So we sold the house on October 31st, 2018. So when I'm meeting with Jacobus and Carla, and there they are, This was around early June 2018. We had to put this deal together. I'd come home to do that. And their appraised value was again 505. I was asking 497.9. And when I met with them, I found out that they needed to sell their house first before they could sell our house. And they had a realtor and we had a realtor. So what kind of offer is this? What kind of structure is this? They need to sell their house before they can buy my house, and they want to put my house under contract. What kind of structure is that called? What kind of offer is that called?
Contingent.
Contingent. So in other words, I can only sell to them. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm under
Correct.
contract.
Accept
I can only during the length of that contract, I can only sell to them. Do they have to buy from me?
If their property sells,
But what if the property doesn't sell?
then no.
No. So they don't have to buy from me, but I have to sell for them to sell to them. Don't you see that that's really just an option? What they want is an option on my property because I had to perform, being the grantor, the optionor, and they may perform being the optionee. So what they were really asking for is they wanted an option about my property if and when they sold their house. And I didn't like that idea because our horse ranch was beautiful in June and green grass everywhere. It just couldn't have been nicer. So I didn't like this idea at all. So I asked him, I said, well, why don't you just buy the property? He said, I can't get a $500,000 mortgage. And I said, did you try? And he said, yeah, I tried, but I can't, they turned me down. And I said, well, and how many of you have been through that? Where you're talking to someone and you're saying, can you do this? And they're wanting to get a contingency offer on your house. And most sellers don't like that. Let me show you how you can structure where it makes it very palatable for you. So he can't get the $500,000 mortgage. And I just asked one question, which was, what can you get? And he said, well, I qualified for a $300,000 mortgage. So now I know he can get a $300,000 mortgage. I stuck out my hand and I said, you have a deal. You have a deal. You can buy my house for $300,000. And he said, well, what's the catch? I said, well, the catch is really simple. Let me get to the catch. So I agreed to sell to Jacobus for $300,000. So were the buyers happy? Yes, they were. They're getting a $500,000 house for $300,000. They're ecstatic and they qualify for the loan. Is Kim happy? Yes, because she said, I don't care if we make $1 a year. I want these people to own it. Am I happy? Hell no, I'm not happy. So I need to structure this further to make this palatable for me. So I'm not happy at all. So then this is the way I came up with the structure. I said, tell you what, he goes, well, what's the catch? I said, all we're going to do is I'm going to sell you the house for $300,000. So you're going to get a great house for well below market. However, at closing, you're going to give me an option. You're going to give me a right to buy this property back at any time over the next 30 years for the $300,000. He goes, well, how does that work? I said, well, sometimes in the next 30 years, more than likely, I'm going to come to you and say, I'm ready to exercise my option. I'm going to give you back your $300,000 and you're going to give me back my property. Now, was I happy with the structure? Because think about it. I'd be capturing all the appreciation on this deal above $300,000 for the next 30 years, up to 30 years. But I could exercise the option whenever I wanted to. So this deal worked real well for me. So was I happy? Yes. Was Kim happy? Yes, because we made it so they could buy it. But were they happy? And the answer is no, they weren't happy at all because this was his forever home. And he did not want me to have the ability to come in at any time I wanted to and give him back his $300,000 and get the deed back to the property. He didn't like that idea. So now I had to structure further. And this is what we did. I said, okay, how long will it take you to sell your house? He said, probably about 6 months, maybe 3 months, but the outside 6 months. I said, okay, here's what we'll do. I'll give you an option to buy my option. And that the strike price will be $197,009. It'll be good for the next 12 months. So anytime over the next 12 months, if you give me $197,900, which is the difference between the $579,900 and the $300,000, if you give me the $197,900, you'll be acquiring the option I hold in the property, which means I can no longer exercise that option. I won't own it anymore. He will. So were the buyers happy with this? Because think about what I did. He was asking me to give him an option on the property by making a contingency contract. And I didn't want to do that. So all I did is I used two different options to do exactly the same thing in reverse, but now it's in favor of me. I got my property sold. He qualified for the $300,000 mortgage. Everything here was going to work really good, but I just put it back on his shoulders. Now, in order for him to keep this house, he must get his home sold. Do you think he's going to work harder at it now? He's going to take an offer that may not be as great as he wants it to be. In other words, he wants to get that option off his back. And so he'll get his house sold quicker and work harder to do it. So Kim was happy because his deal is going through, and I was happy. So how do we know that all three of us were happy? And the answer is the deal got done. So this is us at the closing table, and the deal got done. And that's how you know that this thing worked. And the important lesson to learn here is, as real estate investors, and this is one of the most important lessons you can learn, sometimes the why is more important than the how much. But if all you're using is the big damn hammer, if that's the only tool in your deal structuring toolbox, you're never going to ask why. All you're going to do is, someone has a $100,000 house, you're going to offer him $70,000 minus repair cost and expenses. And that's all you're going to do. You don't care why they're selling or what's going on or whether they want to sell or not. But with creative deal structuring, you've got to find out the why. And that is how you structure your deals. It solves someone's problems. And I'll show you how I find out what the problems are. This is called a T-bar. And this is by far the most important document I use as a real estate investor. And this is the contract. This is the entire amount of paperwork we use to put this deal together. So you're looking at the actual document. And let me kind of enlarge it so you can see it. So the top part is the actual T-bar. The bottom part is the offer. So in talking to him, I asked him Pete's great question in reverse kind of. I just said, why would you want to buy such a nice house like this? And down the left-hand side, you can see me writing down the things that he's telling me. So he's giving me the reason why he wants our property, what makes it important to him. And on the left-hand side, I have it titled current position. So this is where he is now. This is where his life is right now. And if he accepts my offer, whatever that offer is going to be, he moves from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And that's titled potential position. And so I do this in nearly every house I've ever gone into since about 2000 some odd, right? So this to me is so important because it allows me to understand what's going on in their life. Where is the problem? And you'll see T-bars all through tonight. So that's the T-bar. So as he's telling me what he wants and why he wants this property and why he wants to move here and not be where he is, that's me writing that information down. Now, and this is being recorded, so you can come back and read through this. Now let's go to the bottom part of the page, and there's my offer. So I figured out a way to make this deal work, which we just went over. Is I'd sell it to you for $300,000 because he qualifies for that mortgage. I'm going to get an option to buy it back. So I'm going to capture all the appreciation. So I'm happy, but he wants to be able to get the option away from me. And so for 197, I don't have the 9 there, but 197.9, he's able to buy the option from me anytime in the next 12 months. So this was the deal. That was the paperwork you just saw to put this entire deal together. And though we're both using realtors, this is the paperwork we use sitting in the den of our ranch. And it took about an hour of just talking back and forth, and that deal got put together. But understand, if I had not used two pure options, if I had not used these two tools, this deal never would have worked. I couldn't have structured it this way. I would have had to find some other way. So knowing how to use pure options was real important. And when we say pure options, rather than like a lease option, people think that's like one word, lease option. And it's not. It's a lease, which gives someone use of a property, and an option, which gives someone the right to buy. In this case, I'm using two pure options. I'll show you those here coming up. So the following, so here is the option document that we use that they signed at closing. And you're going to see, first of all, that my phone numbers on the documents we're recording the courthouse, because in case they want to sell to someone else or refinance or whatever happens, I want someone to be able to find it. And that's why I record this in the courthouse. So there's my phone number and Kim's phone number in our PO box. And people always think when you're doing option consideration, it has to be cash. It doesn't. Consideration can be whatever the two parties agree is something valuable. So you'll see the consideration for this deal was not that I gave money or they gave money, is that I agreed to sell the $500,000 house for $300,000. That was consideration enough. And I just labeled it that way. I just wrote it down. Now, one of the things that he was worried about is that I would exercise my option. But remember, I promised him I would give him a year to get his house sold. So you'll see on the option agreement dates that it's a 30-year option, but you also will notice that I can't exercise the option. I can't exercise the option between 2018 and 2019. So though it's a 30-year option, the first year I can't exercise. So there's a limit here of what I can do. So the first of the 30-year option, the first year I can't exercise, but anytime for the next 29 years, I can exercise. And again, here's the strike price. This is what I'm selling that this is what I can buy the house back from him for, which is $300,000. And people always ask, well, with an option, what if the person that has the house, what if he doesn't take care of it? What if he lets the house go to pot? Well, the way I do that is I put into the option agreement that if I see repairs that need to be done, I'll give him 7 days to get the repairs done. But if he doesn't do it, then I have the right to come in and have the repairs done. And to really hammer it home, for every dollar I spend to do a repair, I get $3 off the strike price. So this is going to make it very painful to the property owner. So it can be 3 times the strike, 3 times the thing, or 5 times, or 2 times, or 1 time, whatever you want to do. But I want to make sure he knows that if I tell him he needs a new roof and he doesn't, or needs to repair the roof and he doesn't, that I'll come in and repair it, but it's going to cost him dearly. So it's in his best interest to get the job done. And I'm getting enough off the strike price, get enough of a benefit here where I don't mind doing the work if I need to. Next, what happens if he quits paying his mortgage? What if the property is going to foreclosure because he doesn't pay the mortgage? Well, even during the first year, if he's pending foreclosure, then I'm able to come in and buy the property immediately, exercise my option immediately, and buy it subject to his mortgage. So what I've just put together was a subject to deal. And a little bit later on, we'll talk about subject to deals, but basically it's where you buy someone's property, the deed goes into your name, but instead of you going to get a new mortgage, the seller's mortgage stays in place. You're not assuming the seller's mortgage. What you're doing is agreeing to make the seller's mortgage payments for the seller for the length of the time that note's in place until that note's paid off. So that's all a subject to deal is. But I put together a subject to deal. But look below that. Even when I do exercise my option, if and when I do exercise the option anytime over the 30 years, it's still going to be a subject to deal. I still get to take over the note. You might ask, why would he ever agree to this? And the answer is he wanted the property. If he would have said, no, I won't go do this, then he wouldn't have gotten the house, because I wanted to have the ability to do a subject to deal here because it made it easier for me to buy if and when I needed to buy. Also in the option agreement is I have an extension, and I put this in almost every option I do. So this isn't a 30-year option. It can become a 40-year option. And what that means is if I'm in a bad time, the market's going down, or it's not a good time to exercise this option, then by giving him $500,000, giving him $5,000 to be applied toward the strike price, then I can extend the option an additional 10 years. And that will give me time to get it out of the down economy or whatever it is and extend this out. So when you're using options, knowing how to do extensions is really important. This is a recordable document, and it was recorded in the courthouse. So what if, and here's a question you're going to have, what happens if we had this option, we record in the courthouse, what if he just decides to go ahead and sell the property to somebody else, or refinance it, or gets a judgment against him? What happens if he wants to refinance and not even tell me? So I want to make sure I'm aware of these things happen, and here's how you do it. Florida is a mortgage state. So we'll deal right now with mortgages. What do mortgages do? Anybody want to tell me? What's the purpose of a mortgage? Somebody has to talk to me.
It allows you to foreclose.
That's not the purpose of a mortgage.
Secures an interest.
It
Records a
secures
deed.
it secures an interest in what? Explain that a little bit better using more words.
I think it depends on what it is. Like if you have a promissory note for a regular mortgage, you have that, and you have the mortgage that secures it, but it puts a lien on the property.
Yes. So what does a mortgage do? What does it secure?
It secures the property.
It's secured to the property, but what does the mortgage do? What does it secure to the property?
The note.
The promise to pay.
No.
Your option in this case.
It's physical collateral.
Write this down. This is worth your price of admission tonight. A mortgage secures a promise. If you go to almost any closing attorney or title company, they will have no idea what you're talking about. Because when people see a mortgage or a deed of trust or a security deed, almost every time, like 99.9% of the time, it's associated with a promissory note. Like when you borrow money from Bank of America and they secure it to your house.
Right.
So what a mortgage does is secures a promise. A promise can be a promissory note, but is an option a promise? Is an option a promise?
Yes.
Yes. Is a purchase and sale agreement a promise?
Yes.
What if I promise to walk your dog at noon every day over the course of the next 2 weeks, and you want to make sure I walk my dog? Can you secure that promise using a mortgage to the person's property?
If it's in writing, yes.
Yes. So one of the biggest things I want you to get out tonight is you can use a mortgage to secure promises, all sorts of promises. Now you're gonna have to sit down and talk to your attorneys or title agents to make sure they understand this, because the first thing everybody says is, no, you can't do that. But when you look and say, why can't I? There's no code section. A mortgage secures a promise to a property. And so in other words, if the promise is not met, if I don't walk the dog every day at 12 o'clock, what can the promise holder do?
Go back to them, because that's a contract. No matter, you're basically going into a contract, a legal binding contract, and you agree to the terms and conditions of that contract, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah, but I'm not going to worry about the contract so much. We're talking about securing. So if someone
Right, but that's
doesn't,
what a mortgage is.
yeah, but let's say, and it is, but let's say the person doesn't walk the dog every day at 12. Can I foreclose and take his house from him?
Yeah, because they didn't
Yes.
didn't fulfill the
They
contract.
didn't fulfill their promise. Just like if you have a promissory note and you promise to make payments of $1,000 a month every month for 360 months, and you fail to do that, can the lender will then call the note due. And then if you don't pay it off, then the lender can foreclose. If you don't take care of the property, the lender can call the note due. And if you don't take care of what's wrong with the house, they can foreclose. If you don't pay your property taxes or insurance, the lender can call the note due. If you don't fix the insurance and the property taxes, the lender can foreclose. In other words, the house is the collateral for the note. To keep it simple, let's think of a pawn shop. If you have a $500 chainsaw and you need $100, and you take the $100 to a pawn shop, you take the chainsaw to the pawn shop, you give them the chainsaw, it's still yours, and you get $100. But every month you've got to come in and pay the note on that chainsaw. And let's say it's $20 a month. If you failed to make the $20 payment, what will the pawn shop do? Anybody know?
They give you a grace period, and if you don't pay, they'll turn around and sell it.
They'll sell the chainsaw. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. That's what a mortgage does. The property becomes the collateral, just like the chainsaw is the collateral for the $100 loan. Okay, so I want you to understand that.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? Because I get a lot of people come back at me with that. Well, why don't you just secure it with a memorandum? Why use a mortgage over just recording the option or memorandum?
Because when you use a memorandum, it does not go in the chain of title. You cannot foreclose with a memorandum, can you? If you have a
No.
memorandum of a note and they don't pay you, what can you do about it?
Nothing I know of.
Not a damn thing.
Right. And they can ignore the memorandum too.
Yes. And that,
Yeah.
that can happen. And they can close over the top of a memorandum. A lot of you all know Pete Fortunato. You've heard him tell the story about some land that he had in Orlando. And he had an option on it and he used a memorandum. And he drove by that section of land one day when he's on the interstate, and there was a big hotel there on the land that he had an option on. They closed over the top of it. He was just out. Too bad. He didn't, he was not going to go to an attorney's, you know, Pete. He's not going to go to the court. So he just lost out. But when you use a mortgage, you're going into the chain of title, and the property becomes the collateral for the note. So the person who made the promise doesn't do what they promised. In order to be compensated, you can take the property from them. That's why the mortgage, that's why I record my promises to secure my promises to property. I'll use a mortgage or a deed of trust or a security deed. In Georgia, we're a deed of trust state. In Florida, you're in a mortgage state. Okay. So here's the secure, and I called this, you can name it anything you want to. So this is the actual document that's in the courthouse. And I just happen to call it a security instrument because I use security deeds where I am, but I teach often in states that use mortgages. And I just want you to see that I just call it a security instrument, meaning I'm securing the promise to the property. Whatever you call it is whatever you call it. But the way the language is set up in this thing, it is a security deed and not a mortgage. A mortgage is worded differently than a security deed is. But anyway, so here's the security instrument. Again, I put my number all over it so I can be found. And that went to the courthouse. Now, I want you to see the option I gave to the buyer of this property. And again, this option is going to be good for 12 months. And again, this is going to be a lot less formal. It was not recorded in the courthouse. It was not secured. And in this case, we did use cash. So for $1, I sold him the right to buy my option. So he handed me $1 at the closing table and I put it in my pocket. And in return, I gave him this document. And again, for the next year after closing, if he comes up with $197,900, he's able to buy the option that I'm holding. So that's what this agreement was. And it was non-assignable and it was non-recordable. I didn't want him to mess up his paperwork or get in chain of title. He didn't know what he was doing. And so these are just rules I put in. And again, the question is, why did he do it? It's because he wanted the house and I had come up with a way for him to buy the house where he got everything he wanted. It was going to take about a year to complete the closing, but that's what we did here. Now I know that some of you are brand new are looking at that going, I have no idea what he's talking about. I want you to hang on tight, okay? And don't hang up and don't go away. So the first thing you need to know about creative deal structuring is its own language. Now let's think of a language. And let me ask you, is it hard to learn to speak Chinese? And when I ask most Americans that, they're going to be like, yeah, it's almost impossible to learn Chinese. And the answer is no, it's very easy to learn Chinese. That's why in China, there are about 1 billion 5-year-olds whose brains are not fully formed yet, who speak Chinese fluently. So what is the secret to learning Chinese? Why can these 5-year-olds all speak Chinese fluently? And the answer is immersion. And that's how you learn creative deal structuring. To give another example is I'm moving, Kim and I will spend the winter down just south of Guadalajara, Mexico. And we'll do that we'll be in Spanish speaking countries the next 3 years because I want to become fluent in Spanish. And I've been doing Duolingo, which is a Spanish program, for like 420 some odd days or something. And every morning I do a 30 or 40-minute lesson, but that's not the same thing as living in the country. So that's another reason why you want to join your REIA. You want to come to your REIA. You want to be around other investors. And when I was talking to Adrian before everybody got on, he said that he used to go to, 3-4 meetings, real estate investor meetings a week was not unusual. When you're around Pete Fortunato, he's in 1 or 2 real estate investor meetings every single day. And he has been for like 55 years. That's why he's fluent in creative deal structuring. He's around it all the time. So that's why you join your REIA. That's why you come to the meetings. That's why you form coffee groups, get with other investors. That's how you learn the language. So the question you're going to have is, how long does it take to become fluent in creative deal making? Now, I want you to go to our website. It's billingkimcook.com. And in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a button that says About Bill and Kim. Now, when you click on the button, you'll see our bio. And really, you don't care about us. And I get that. I don't care. That's fine. But below the bio, you're going to see our timeline. In other words, you're going to see year by year when I learned the different ways to creatively structure, different techniques, different ways to stack. And go look at how long it took. It was over 10 years before Kim and I were competent deal structurers. I'm not going to tell you it takes you 10 years. Maybe you do it faster. Maybe you do it longer. I don't know. But I knew that I wasn't going to quit. And I had great teachers in Pete and Jack and Dykes who I was going to all the time. But go look at our timeline. So it's 10 years to get where we were competent, another 10 years to where we were really good at deal structuring, and then another 10 years before we had mastered and become fluent in the art of creative deal structuring. Okay, the language of this. So if this is your first meeting or you're in your first year, don't get upset that you don't speak the language fluently. When I was learning Spanish, I learned taza, cup. I learned caliente, hot. I learned, go, stop, happy, just little words. And then you learn small sentences, and then you learn harder sentences, and then you learn paragraphs, and then you move into becoming fluent, but it takes time. So don't get frustrated if you don't know what we're talking about here. Also, if you're looking for some really good lessons, I told you Jack Miller was the guy. He was the first out there. And you can go to cashflowdepot.com and his material is there. He wrote something called the Commonwealth Newsletter. So there's like 200 and some odd newsletters, 243 newsletters on that website. He has videos of him teaching. He has workbooks you can get. And I think the lifetime membership is like $2.99. I know that that's going to go up in price probably come the fall. And something y'all should know is that Jackie Lang founded that site in 2007 and set it up and put Jack's material there. And then earlier this year, she handed the site over to me and Kim, which was a great honor. I tried to buy it from her and she wouldn't take any money. So we just now have it, control it. And over the course of the next year, because there's a lot to process, you'll see us make some changes to Cashflow Depot. But his information just sits there. So again, go to Cashflow Depot. You'll love it. Now let's move into rarefied air. You've heard me mention pure options a couple times, and I want to show you a straight pure option. And this is me working with someone. And the problem with this property is the person could not afford their property taxes. That was the problem. And they were going to be forced to sell. Remember, we said sometimes people are forced to sell and they don't want to. When I'm using options almost all the time, is someone who does not want to sell their house. Rarely, like maybe 1 to 3 times, have I ever used an option with someone who wants to sell their house. But watch how this option works. So I was just door knocking, which is what I do a lot of. And this is the conversation I had with this homeowner when he knocked on the door. My approach was real simple. It said, we love your home. We love your street. We love the neighborhood. We want to own a home here. And I just said, do you know of anybody who's thinking about selling? And he kind of laughed, and he didn't laugh. He more of a snicker. He went, yeah, me. I think I'm going to probably be forced to sell pretty soon. But in his body language, what he was telling me was he didn't want to sell. He was just going to be forced to sell. And so that led to the question, always be inquisitive, always be curious. Why? Why are you selling your property? And he said, I can't afford my property taxes. He said, my wife and I are retired. We're on a fixed income and property taxes have gone through the roof and we can't afford them anymore. Have you talked to anybody that's having any problem paying their property taxes or insurance? Haven't those gone up dramatically over the last 5 years? Don't you know there's a lot of people that are sweating bullets because of property taxes, and they don't want to lose their home. They just can't afford the property taxes. That's this guy. And I said, well, do you want to sell? Is that what you're wanting to do? And he says, no, I love my home. I want to be here another 10 years. I don't want to sell. And I said, let me ask you this. I said, would you be willing to trade a glass of sweet tea if I could show you a way where you could keep your house and never pay property taxes again. Would that be of interest to you? Now, of course, he's getting ready to lose his house and he doesn't want to. So yeah, he's interested in what I have to say. And so he invited me in. So here's the T-bar. Again, I told you that this is the most important document I use when I'm talking to buyers, sellers, borrowers, lenders. I use this all the time. In this case, this is his situation. And he doesn't want to sell right now. And he's having to sell because his property taxes are too high. And I said, well, do you ever fight your property taxes? He said, well, I don't know how. And you can't fight City Hall. And I said, well, and he said, I just can't afford to pay him anymore. I'm going to have to sell the house. I can't afford the house. And I said, well, are you really don't want to move? He goes, I really don't want to move. So that's his current position. This is what he's facing. Now, let me ask you this. Does this matter whether the inflation is up or down or sideways? The market's going up, down, or sideways? No, these are his problems. This is real world stuff. And so all he has to do is agree to my offer, my creative offer I'm about to put together for him. And look at what happens. He doesn't have to sell right now. And his property taxes will be lowered. And I'll fight his property taxes for him. But most importantly of all, he'll never have to pay his property taxes ever again. And he doesn't have to move. What if this were you? What if this is your mom and dad? Do you not think that this would make a big difference? Would be really interested in this? And who else is going out and making these kind of offers or taking time to find out this kind of information? Nobody. So here's the deal structure. I asked him what his house is worth. He said it was worth about $175,000. And it was. That was a fair price. And I said, okay, we will fight your property taxes for you. And from now on, every year, I'll pay your property taxes. So that won't cost you anything. I'll fight them and I'll pay them. And what I want in return is I want a 30-year option that we're allowed to buy your house anytime in the next 30 years for $175,000. In other words, starting today, if he said yes to this deal, all the appreciation that house experiences comes to me, not to him. But the 175, so you bought the house for a good bit less than that, that's all his. But moving forward, all the appreciation that's going to be got was come to me. And he did tell me, he said, well, I want to be here at least 10 years. And so you saw me do this before. I said, okay, we won't exercise for the first 10 years. The other thing I put into this is for every dollar I pay in property taxes, when we do go to exercise, I get $1.50 off the strike price. You saw me do that with a repair. Now you're seeing me do that with property taxes. And I told him we would not exercise for the first 10 years. Now, is this a fair offer to him? The answer is yes. How do you know? He accepted it. So here's the option agreement. Again, you can see my contact information is all over it. And the consideration was not money, it's that I agreed to pay his property taxes for the next 30 years. So that's the consideration. I guess you can call that money, but what it really was he doesn't have to pay his property taxes ever again. And that made his day. So you're seeing some things, some deal structures, and you're more than likely scratching your head going, how does all this work? So I'm teaching a seminar called What Box. And it's going to be August 20th and 21st, 2022. It's going to be in Tampa, Florida. We teach at the Marriott close to the airport. And what this seminar is about structure stacking. So you're watching me, and you'll see the future deals coming that we're about to cover. You're watching me use multiple deal structuring tools to make a single deal work. And that's what Box is about. It's like no other seminar taught in the country. Because again, it's not just about subject to deals, or not just about master lease, or not just about owner financing. It's about all of them you're working with them together to make a single deal work. You're not just using the big damn hammer. And I have 3 of my friends who will be teaching with me. So Adrian Smoot, who's on this call, he'll be working with me here, and he'll be talking about land home deals with what he does with mobile homes. Lindsay Jensen, a good friend of mine from Colorado Springs, will be in teaching, and she'll be talking about master leasing. And Lindsay is a phenomenal woman. And she started 6 years ago, and she went from nothing in real estate to where she now controls $10 million in real estate, primarily from subject to deals and master leasing. And then another friend of mine named Maria Giordano, she'll be teaching, and she's a great deal structurer. But what you're going to be seeing coming from us, where Adrian will be talking about a specific tool and Lindsay will be talking about a specific tool and Maria will be talking about negotiation. When I'm teaching, I'll be talking about putting the different tools together and you'll see them in deal after deal after deal. Whoop, sorry about that. And so, in person to attend is be $747, but tonight we have a discount. So for this group, it's gonna be $597. And if you want to do the Zoom meeting, you can. So we're giving a $200 travel credit to people who attend in person. But if you want to do it over Zoom, you can. Normal price is $947, but the discounted price for tonight is $797. And if you go to our website, just put in the word special. And again, that's going to be good through midnight tonight. And then that deal's off the table. And you can do that at billandkimcook.com. But that's what Box is about. Now, you may be asking, why the name What Box? So I'm going to share with you the most important deal structuring lesson I ever learned in real estate. And it came from Pete Fortunato. And I was working on a deal and it was an error situation. There were 4 people inheriting. I put together an offer that was giving everybody what they wanted, and it had like 9 different moving parts. So 9 things to structure stack. And it was a very complicated offer. And I knew that in the end, each person would be more worried about what somebody else was getting in the deal than what they were getting. And this deal was going to fall apart. So I called up Pete and I asked for help, and he helped me modify this and simplify my offer. And I was able to present that offer and they accepted it. And I was so happy. We still have that house today. And I'm always very grateful for that deal. But I wrote a newspaper column for 13 years. And it was syndicated in Georgia. Anyway, and I want to say one thing. Joey English is on this phone call. And I don't know if Joey's muted or not, but when I quit writing the column in 2015, I turned the column over to Joe. And since January 1st of 2016, Joe's been writing the column. And Joe, if you would put up a way that people can see your column, in the chat session. If you want to link in and talk to him, you're welcome to do that also. I know you have family around you, so it may be too loud, but you're welcome to do that.
I don't know how to do a message on here. I was trying to do it, but
okay, then tell me. Tell me, how do they reach you?
If you want to read me, you can go to my website. It's cashflowwithjoe.com. That's cashflowwithjoe.com. It's free. I write it weekly. I talk about the stuff that I've learned from Bill. I talk about the stuff I've learned from Pete. I talk about David Tillany. I'll talk about how we use that in real life. Like we talk about deals that are actually happening. Some of them actually go through. Some of them don't go through. Then I talk about what I learned in it. And it's a fun little resource to be able to see things happening in real world time, and I try to make it fun too. So there's some funny stuff in it too.
Hey Joe, and this will help the people who are newer on this phone call. When we first met, it was around 2011, 2012.
Correct.
What were you doing at the time?
I was going door to door with my pressure washer, trying to pressure wash people's houses for $75 a pop to put food on the table.
And how much money was in the bank?
None, like negative. We were 2 broke kids. I was out of college and I was worried to death they were going to start making me pay my student loans back.
And that always amazed me. And when I first met Joe, at the same time, Dorsey Bodiford, who's Dykes Bodiford's daughter, she started investing about the same time. So I was working with Joe and Ashley, and I was also working with Dorsey. And because Dorsey was Dykes' daughter, she had the funds to take down deals. You should just go and say, hey, Dad, I need to borrow money for this deal or that deal. And one time Joe came to me, they'd been investing for about 2, maybe 3 years. And Joe was frustrated because Dorsey was, doing deal after deal because she didn't have a problem with getting the money to do the deal with. And she was just turning and burning. And Joe was frustrated. Joe, tell that part of the story. What happened next? What did we talk about?
So we didn't have money, and I'd been learning from Bill and learning from Pete and learning from Dykes about how to do creative deal structuring. And Bill looked at me and he said, Joey, it won't. Dorsey has the ability to be able to go fund deals, because I was watching her do 1 million deals, and we're over here doing 2 or 3, and we thought we were rolling when we did 8 in 1 year. We're like, wow. And he looked at me and he said, Joey, it won't be too long and you'll be able to structure the pants off of all the deals around and you'll be doing more deals in Dorsey. And I was like, whatever. And so that came to fruition.
So now if you sat down at a table where a seller needed a creative solution and both Joe and Dorsey showed up, Joe could handle that deal. He could structure out the deal because he had to learn how to be creative. And Dorsey, though she's very smart and a very capable investor, she does it. She never earned the chops as far as creative deal structuring and knowing all the things that Joey knows how to do. So point is, when things are harder on you in the beginning, when you don't have the money, when you don't have the funds, when you got to use your creativity, when you got to use your imagination to make these deals work, when you got to use different tools in the toolbox that most people don't know how to use, in the end, years down the line, you'll be a much better deal maker than the average person. Again, go back and look at the timeline that Kim and I have. Go look at that and go look at the different techniques we had to learn to use. Because like Joe, we didn't have the cash. We didn't have people we could turn to that just handle this money to go do deals. So Kim and I were very much like Joe and Ashley. And we learned our lessons. We had to. And I'm real proud of Joe. And Joe, I'm not going to put you on a complete spot, but we had a conversation about a year ago and you were talking about where you are now, but keep it very general. But can you talk about that? Where you are financially right now? You remember the conversation we had?
Oh yeah. So we I was talking about this earlier today with my buddy Mike Hicks, and it is amazing that real estate compounds. I mean, like what you're doing today, if you keep at it over time, it will compound. It all keeps adding together as long as you don't do things that are, you can't do poor business. You always got to do what's right. If you just do what's right, it all works out. But as you sit back and you look at what has come to be with the effort that you put in, you just become very humbled and very blessed that all this has came to be. And so we went from being 2 broke kids straight out of college, not knowing what in the heck we were going to do to put food on the table, to the point that we were financially free in about 6 years. And since that time have been able to really, really put some money aside and feel financially free altogether. So we didn't just get out of the rat race. Right now, we are putting money aside to be able to do greater things than ourselves. Like we're going to fund a religious camp. And so we put 10% of our funds into an account to be able to fund that religious camp. And I want to tell y'all, this is something that's really cool this year. We just surpassed what our yearly goal was. So we had a goal of how much money we were going to stick in that account for this year, and we surpassed it in Q2. And that was just like mind-blowing that has happened that well. So that answer your question, Bill, or is that just rambling?
Let me ask you, no, you're not rambling, but let me ask you a question. So when we met, you were making $75 a house by pressure washing it, right?
No, I was hoping to make $75 a house pressure washing.
And today, and again, we're going to keep things general. Today, are you a millionaire?
Yes.
And that's all within 10 years, folks. That's within 10 years. And when Joey told me the story, when he realized it, he had crossed that line. He was the most shocked individual on the planet. I just thought that was hilarious. He's like, how did that even
It was
happen?
crazy. I was asked, a financial advisor that we'd hired asked me how much our properties were worth. And I was like, I don't know, because I hadn't paid attention to it, because all we cared about was how much cash flow we had coming in, because that's how we were eating. And he was like, well, go find out how much your properties are worth. And I was like, okay. So I went and found out how much my properties were worth. And he came back and he's like, Joey, you're only leveraged about 33% of what your properties are worth. I was like, okay. And he's like, that means that you have over $1 million worth of equity. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? And he said, Joey, you're a millionaire. No, I'm not. That's crazy. And so I came home and I told my wife this, and I went through the whole thing with her. And I was like, she was like, well, what does that mean? And I was like, that means we're millionaires. She's like, really? I don't feel any different.
I just think it's a great story where you came, where you came from and what you've done and the hardships you had. And when you were first starting, you would bring me contracts, potential deals. How many of those did I turn down?
All of them. I mean, it was just like a shoot fest. I'm like, golly. I mean, like I was wanting to do real good deals. I knew that you'd be the one to tell me how to do the good deals, but it was like everything was like, no, this don't work. That don't work. This don't work. Don't buy a house that has tabby on it. Do this. But it was good. It was learned.
And again, even in the failures, he was learning and he didn't quit. He just kept coming back for more and more and more and more. And so that's Joe's story. So Joe, give your website again so people can read your column.
www.cashflowwithjoe.com.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it and love you, buddy.
Love you.
So going back to talking about Pete and this deal. So I wrote at the time I wrote a column that Joe took over, and that column I wrote was about this transaction that Pete helped me with, and I called it Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. I was real proud of the column and what I wrote. I really like it. Anyway, again, Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. And when it ran in the paper, I put it on a plaque and I sent it down to Pete. And, I just thought he's going to really enjoy and get a kick out of this. And he sent me back after getting my column. He sent me back a 2-word email. Remember, Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. Guess what the email said? And let me tell you, you can get lost in what box. And I did. I sat next to our fire pit for about 3 days making notes, and I drove down to see him. And basically the lesson was this: you can't work outside of some box and reach your full potential, because you're going to always be chained to that box in some form or fashion. For you to reach your full potential as a creative deal maker, you have to realize there is no box. Our job is to go out and do no harm. You heard Adrian say that when this meeting started. Our job is to help people solve their real estate problems. That's what we do. But that's where the name What Box came from. And that's why it means so much to me today, is because that one deal. But more than that deal, it was the column that I wrote. But more than the column I wrote, it was Pete's response of What Box. All the difference in the world. Okay, let's look at another deal. And what this is the property Kim was just at tonight. This is, yes?
Okay, about the last one deal that you just did. And here in Florida, and I don't know if it's like that everywhere, some of the houses are like, overinflated, let's call it that, or people think they're worth more than they, maybe than they should be worth. If someone has an unrealistic price for their option, how do you handle that? And would you, for those that are new, because the prices have just been going vertical here in this market, and some of them in the future may or may not be worth that, depending on the time of the option to exercise. Do you handle that, or could you address that, what you would do about that?
Well, in this case, I asked him what he thought his house was worth. It was 175. I had a 30-year option. 10 years I couldn't exercise it, but it's a 30-year option to buy it. He wouldn't be able to sell to anybody else during those 30 years. And today that house is worth probably about $260,000. But at the time I had the option to buy it for 175. That was the price of the house. It's just everything's gone up since then. And so when I'm dealing with something, I'm going to ask them what their house is worth. And most people will give you a fair number. They're not going to, if their house is worth 250, they're not going to tell you it's worth $500,000. Most people don't do that. I mean, a lot of houses, and rarely does someone, they're not going to be a smart aleck. They'll tell you what it's worth. And then it's up to you to decide what's going to happen. It's just, I believe that if you look at what houses sold for, if you bought a house in 1970, you could buy it for about $12,000. Well, what's that same house worth today? Well, if you bought a house in 1990, it was worth maybe $35,000. What's it worth today? If you bought a house in 2012 for $175,000 and it's worth $260,000, $270,000 today. I mean, it's not so much that the houses are going up in value, is that the dollar buys less and less because of inflation. And do you see government at any time stopping inflation? Do you think that's going to happen anytime in our lifetime? I mean, they've never done it yet.
No.
And I look at a good house. I look at a good neighborhood. I look at what I do. I think what's going to happen to it. I'm working a 5-mile circle around the Cartersville, Georgia Walmart. I know my area. Now I don't feel comfortable with a price or a number. I'll make an offer that I'm comfortable with. I'll change the numbers to say, this is what I can do. Okay.
Thank you. That was the answer I wanted. Thank you.
Sure. So this is going to be a case where the owner wants his price, and his price was well above fair market value. And this is kind of like what you're talking about, Susan. So what I pay more than what a house is worth. And in this case, I paid about 30% more than what the house is worth. I'll show you the deal. So again, this is the lesson in this with Greenacre Lane is this man wanted more than what the house is worth. Was I willing to pay it? And the answer is I was, but I had to structure it so it worked for me. So in this case, doing option work did not work for me. So I couldn't use an option here because he was wanting a lot more than what it was currently worth. But watch how we put the deal together. So I found it by door knocking. I was going through a neighborhood, and one of the neighbors said, hey, I said, do you know of anybody who's thinking about selling a house? And they said, yeah, the guy next door is a rental house. He has some tenants in place, and he's had that house for about 3 years. The problem is he's moved. He just relocated about an hour away. He's having to drive back and forth. And, you know, every time the tenant calls with a clogged toilet or a light bulb is out or whatever was wrong, he's having to drive back and then go back home. And that's 2 hours going to Home Depot. And he hates the house now. So one of the neighbors told me about this thing and said that he had talked about, you know, selling, you know, he's going to put it on the market sometime soon. And we call these things shadow sellers. When I'm out door knocking, every day I go out door knocking, I'll find between 1 and 3 shadow sellers, someone whose house is going to go in the market in the next 12 months. Nobody knows about it but the neighbors. So it's not on anybody's list. It's not on your database. Nobody knows about it. And I find 1 to 3 every time I go out door knocking. So in this case, he wasn't home. The tenants weren't home either, but I left something called a teeter-totter offer in the door. So this is what a teeter-totter offer looks like. So this is the offer I left in his door. It basically says, I love your house. We want to own a home here. If my offer is ever of interest, let's talk over coffee. And then I have done offer number 1, and we will pay $85,000. We will give $2,000 down and make monthly payments of $417. Or we can pay $51,000 all cash. Now, remember, I haven't seen the inside of the house. This is just a card I left in the door. I do this a lot when nobody's home. And again, I call it a teeter-totter because what it is a price terms offer. That's another name for a teeter-totter. So I want you to picture a teeter-totter. In fact, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, draw a picture of a teeter-totter. And in one seat, write down the word price. And on the opposite seat, write down the word terms. And this is what a teeter-totter offer is. So when I'm making someone a teeter-totter offer, I'll do one of 2 things. I'll let them name price, whatever price they want. They can say $10 trillion. And my answer is yes. I don't care what it is they say. They get price. They can name any price they want as long as they give me the other seat, which is term. So how will I pay them the $10 trillion? And the answer is I've got to make sure the payment is such that it's going to cash flow. Now, it may take me 1 billion years to pay them back, but that's okay. That property will cash flow from day one. Now, what if they want the term seat? In other words, they come to me and they say, we want all cash. Now, when someone tells you they want all cash, they're telling you how they want to be paid. That's terms. And I'm saying, I'll be happy to pay you all cash, but I get the price seat, which means I get to name the price, and it will not be $10 trillion. It's going to be less than what the property's worth. When we talk about the big damn hammer, 70 cents on the dollar minus expenses, it'll be that sort of offer. So that's what you're seeing here. And people always ask, how do Kim and I get so many owner financed offers or deals? And that's because we make so many owner financed offers. So again, this is just called a teeter-totter. It's very simple. And one of the questions you're going to have is, well, what happens if they just call you up and accept the offer? I want to ask you a question. Do you actually see the offer? Do you see the offer I'm making on the back of this card? The real offer. And it's not offer number 1. It's not offer number 2. What offer is on this card?
You're offering coffee.
I'm offering coffee. Let's talk over a cup of coffee. So if someone says, I want to accept your offer, the answer is great. When can we meet for coffee? Because that's what I'm offering. Now, why do I say let's meet over coffee? I don't say let's meet face to face, but I want to meet face to face because it's so important to me. So I can see someone, I can talk to them, I can ask questions, I can watch their body language. And so coffee can be done in their house. It can be done in a realtor's office. It can be done at Waffle House. And that's where he and I met. I left this card. The tenants gave him the information. He called me, and that's where we met. And when we met, again, here we are doing another T-bar. So his current position is he hates the drive. He hates, and he's been talking to a couple of investors about selling the house. He's been getting some lowball offers because to him, he wanted to get 85,000. The problem is the house is only worth 70, but the investors, because the property's worth 70, were offering him $45,000 and $50,000, and it was making him sick to his stomach because he had paid $85,000 for the house in 2006. He hated doing repairs. He hated going to Home Depot. He turned the house over to a management company for about 6 months, and they nickel and dimed it to death. But he did like getting monthly checks. And what he really wanted was a fast resolution of this problem. And so that's his current position. All he has to do is accept my offer, whatever that offer is going to be. And look at what happens. No more driving. We'll pay his asking price of $85,000. There's going to be no more repairs, no more management companies. He'll keep getting checks, and we'll close in 15 days. All he has to do is say yes, and he can move into a better position than where he is now. So here's the offer. He wanted 85. I was willing to pay 85, though the property was only worth 70. So this is $15,000 above fair market value. And I said, I'll give you $2,000 down. I'll give you a note where I'll agree to make you 360 payments of $417 a month at 4.43% interest. And you might ask, how did I come up with those numbers? In our world, where if you're a roofer, your tool of choice is a hammer. If you're a plumber, tool of choice is a wrench. Electrician, wire cutters. Well, as real estate investors, our tool of choice is a financial calculator. To put together owner finance deals and to do our job the way we're supposed to do them, you need to know how to use a calculator. Most of us use something called a Hewlett-Packard 10B2, 10BII. It's called a 10B2. But you need to know how to use this. And that's where I came up with this information. And he had just put in some tenants about 6 months before, and he liked them. And he said, would you keep these tenants? And I met with them, and I was happy with the tenants. And they're taking good care of the property. I said, yeah, I'll keep the tenants in place. And the house was renting at the time for $850 a month. And I was happy with that rent. Because again, I'm paying him for $17 a month. Then I'm going to have taxes and insurance. And so there was some cash flow here. And I was going to be able to acquire this property. So even though it was worth less by $15,000 than what the fair market value was, because I was getting terms, I agreed to this deal. And you may wonder why would you do such a bad deal like this? I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you now. So here are the numbers in 2012. The property was worth $70,000. So $15,000 too much. The rents are $850 a month. And the mortgage was $82,000. Do you want to see today? The fair market value in this property is $350,000. This house is going to rent for $6,000 a month. This is what Kim's working on. We're going to be doing something called corporate rentals. So this property will be bringing in $60,000 a month, and the current mortgage balance is $68,000. So crazy like a fox. And all I did is I liked the house, I liked the neighborhood, and I felt that over the course of time, though we were in 2012, when the market was down, that this market would come back eventually. And when it did, the property would gain in appreciation. And that's exactly what's happened. So am I glad we did this deal? Yes. And it's cash flowed since the beginning. Okay. So here's
Bill,
another problem. Yeah.
We'll go to the next one. How did you know to offer him the 85,000? Did his tenants or did someone give you like a clue that you needed to offer over that, or how did you
the neighbor said that he was wanting $85,000. The neighbor said he wanted to sell. He had moved an hour away. He had talked about $85,000, and the neighbor laughed and said he'll never get that. The property's worth about 70. I mean, the neighbor, and this wasn't just one neighbor. This is probably 3 of the neighbors I talked to on that street.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. And that's how I knew to, and again, before I put the offer in his door, I talked to the neighbors. And this is something you might want to do. I strongly suggest you do it. When I find a house I like, maybe there's a for sale sign in the yard, or I hear someone has it for sale, to find out about that property, I knock on the doors around that house. So 2 to the left, 2 to the right, 4 across the street. And I talk to the neighbors, and you'll be amazed at all the information you get. You can gather that way. Okay, so now here's another situation that we run into on a regular basis. In this case, it's a seller, and this seller could not afford the payments. She was going to lose this house. It's on Stonebridge Drive in Cartersville, Georgia. And so she was going to lose this house. And how would you deal with this? How would you deal with this person? And you'll see the situation she was in. How would you structure this? Now, understand, if all I was going to do is offer her a 70 cent on the dollar offer minus expenses, do you see that this deal would never work? You'll see as we go into the numbers, there's no way I would have gotten this property. So like Joe, Kim and I had to learn how to creatively structure by going to the really great teachers of Jack Miller and Pete Fortunato and Dyke Spotiford. And this is a language that got learned over time, day by day. With each offer, you learn a little bit more. And so here's how it was found. I wasn't knocking doors in that neighborhood where this house was. In fact, I was way out in Taylorsville, which is well west of Cartersville by about 20 minutes. And Kim and I were looking at some houses out there, and there was a place called, I think, Utter Delights, which was one of our favorite restaurants because they made incredible chocolate milkshakes. Now you should know it's like June or July. It's hot outside. I've been outdoor knocking, and I met her there to go to that restaurant. I'd been knocking in town and just drove out because we like that restaurant. And again, I am a sucker for a chocolate milkshake. And when I was on my way there, in fact, I was almost there, Kim called and said, honey, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late by about an hour. And all I could think to myself was, I'd worked that morning. It's probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was hot. I was hungry, and I wanted a milkshake. And I thought, I'll just go in here and wait on her. I'll have a milkshake and not tell her I'm having it. And that way, when she gets here and we have a hamburger, I'll have a second milkshake, which made total sense to me. Why not? And it was an air conditioner. They had a real cold air conditioner in this restaurant. I love this place. But that's not the job. You have to do what you're supposed to go do. So instead of going in, I just went behind the restaurant, even though it was in Taylorsville and not in my 5-mile circle. And I started door knocking. I started going down the street. And in this, I basically, one of the house, about the third or fourth house I knocked on, the house was not for sale. All I said was, hey, I love your house. I love your street. I love your neighborhood. Kim and I my wife and I want to own a home here. Do you know anybody who's thinking about selling? And she said, yeah, I have a vacant rental and I really need to get it sold. Again, this is another one of those shadow sellers. Her rental was not on the market. It's just I happened to knock into it. You may say I got lucky, but after you've done this bunches and bunches of times, it's not luck. It's just you're out there and you're making your luck. So she was a shadow seller. And I said, well, I'll let you talk to you about that house, find out where it is. So she invited me in. We sat at the kitchen table, had a glass of sweet tea, and this was her situation. So this is the T-bar from that deal back in 2007. And what their problem was, she had lived in this house on Stonebridge and moved out to the house she's in now. It was smaller with no steps. She was older and she liked the house she was in now, but she kind of gotten in a financial bind. So the rental was vacant. And she was about 2 months behind on her mortgage payments on Stonebridge. But she was also 1 month behind on her house. And she'd borrowed some money from her parents. She borrowed $4,000 from her parents that she needed to pay back and didn't know how she was going to pay it back. And she knew that if she missed a third payment, she was going to lose Stonebridge to foreclosure. And she was trying to get it sold. But a realtor she had met with told her until she got the repairs done, the house probably wouldn't sell. But she didn't have the money for the repairs. And so she was worried about losing the foreclosure, the Stonebridge to foreclosure. And she didn't want to go do cleanup, but that's her current position. And then I just did the T and did potential position. All she has to do is accept my offer. And all of a sudden there's no more vacant rental she has to worry about. We'll bring the Stonebridge mortgage current. She'll be able to bring her mortgage current. She'll be able to pay off her parents, and that meant a lot to her. She just hated owing her parents. And I said, you don't have to make any repairs. You really don't have to do anything. We'll just take care of this. You don't have to fix anything. So do you see that from her frame of mind, if she can move from her current position to this potential position, as long as the offer made some kind of sense to her, that she would say yes. Now, in this case, the big damn hammer wouldn't work. And so below, you're going to see my offer. And this is the document we use. This is what I went to town with. This was us sitting at the kitchen table. This was her piece of paper that she handed me. So here's the offer. I said I could close in 5 days. So that got an offer back quickly. And I said, we'll buy the house for whatever the balance of your mortgage is, plus I'll give you $10,000 cash. Now, the problem is I didn't trust her with $10,000 cash. So what I said is, from your $10,000 cash you're getting to get at the closing table, at the closing table, you're going to write a check will be drawn to your parents for $4,000, and it's going to be sent to them by the attorney. So they get that $4,000 and that's off your back. And she agreed to that. And I said, Stonebridge is behind by $1,200, and part of the $10,000 is going to go to catch that up. And she agreed to that. And I said, also, we're going to catch up the arrears on your home, and the attorney's going to send it into your mortgage company. So when we're done with the closing, your mortgage is current, Stonebridge is caught up. You don't have to worry about Stonebridge anymore, and your parents are paid off. And that made her very happy. And she said, what about closing costs? I said, we'll cover all the closing costs. So this is the potential position. All she had to do is say yes. Now, one of the things I said to her was, for us to buy this, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to agree to make your mortgage payments on your mortgage for you until your mortgage is paid off according to the terms of your mortgage. Do you see what this is? This is the way I talk about and tell people about a subject to deal. I don't use the phrase subject to deal. So for us investors, that's a word that we know and we use, but to civilians, to this lady, that wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So I just put it in what we're going to actually do, which is I'm going to buy your home. I'll own it. We'll leave your mortgage in place. I'm going to make your mortgage payments for you. You don't have to worry about those payments ever again. And I'll make them until that note is paid off according to the terms of the note that you signed, whatever it is. So if you have 28 years left, I'll make those payments for 28 years. So this is how we put together the subject to deal. Now, here are the numbers on this house. So was this deal worth it? Okay. Was it worth skipping 2 milkshakes to go out and door knock? So that fair market value on this house in 2007 was $90,000. It rented for $850, and the balance on it was $80,000. Nowadays, it's worth $320,000. It brings in $1,600 a month in rent, and the property is free and clear. Who paid off the property? I didn't. We had it rented, and we used those rents to sock it toward the mortgage to get this property paid off. And it's one of our free and clear properties. Okay. So you've seen a number of different deal structures, and I'm going to show you one more here in a minute, but I also want you to see that when you saw me do the pure option, I was door knocking. When you saw me do the subject to deal, I was door knocking. When you saw me get the owner finance deal, I was door knocking. And so I want to show you really is the fastest, cheapest, most effective way to get face-to-face with homeowners and make written offers. And it's not that I enjoy door knocking. It's that it's just the most effective, cheapest, fastest way I know to get in front of homeowners, in front of sellers, and find shadow sellers. Okay. So something you should know about me. I started door knocking where I was knocked on someone's door, being invited in the house. I just started doing this for a living in 1972. I was 12 years old. And I do it through today. So I've done this for over 50 years of door knocking. So what you're doing is you're seeing a picture of me there back when I was in my 30s. And you should know that I sold Electrolux vacuums door to door to put myself through college. And then when I graduated, I stayed with it for a total of 18 years because I could make more money doing that than I could anything else. And you may be wondering whether door knocking is safe or not. I want you to notice I'm standing next to a woman. Any idea who the woman is? That's my mother. My mother started working for Electrolux selling vacuums door to door in 1968. And she did it full time for 28 years. So she was a phenomenal salesperson. And so since I was a kid, 8 years old, I was, learning stories at the kitchen table about door knocking and being invited in and how to do a demo. And so this is all I've ever done is knock on people's doors. So as I tell you these things, understand it's coming from someone with a great deal of experience. And when I say certain things work, please just know that they work. Okay. You don't have to go reinvent the wheel. I know that you think you know what's going to happen if you go knock on someone's door, but I promise you, unless you've done it, you don't. You're hearing people say things of what can happen and not happen, but they've never actually done it themselves. It's just, one of those rumors that go around that never happen. So one of the things you're going to say is door knocking won't work in Lakeland, but I've door knocked in Lakeland and I've door knocked in places all over the country. And normally when I go out, I've got somewhere between 40 and 60 people that go with me door knocking. So I'm at the door and they're watching me. So I go out with big groups. I did that for years and years and years. And I want you to know what happens when I take groups out door knocking, because I tell all groups before we head out, including the one when I took the Lakeland group out, what's going to happen ahead of time. So this is just what it looks like. And this is the groups I take out. And by the way, Joe English, phenomenal door knocker. He and I have been out a couple times door knocking together. So when I hear that door knocking won't work here, wherever here he is, yes, it will. Because I've door knocked all across the country, Northeast, South, and West. And again, I've been doing this since I was a kid. So before I take a group out door knocking, I tell everybody the same thing, that we'll make between 5 and 10 written offers by the end of the day. So let me ask you a question. And I ask this for this reason. I get a lot of calls from investors that are having a tough time. They're not making it, or they're failing, and they're trying to seek help of what they need to do. And I always ask the same two questions of the investor who calls with this problem. The first question I ask is, how many written offers have you made in the last 30 days? Guess what the answer is? The second question I ask is, how many offers have you made in the last 12 months? And usually the offer is less than 10. Can anybody on this call explain to me how they expect to buy 20 or 30 houses a year when they've done less than 10 written offers a year? How does that even work? And so if you want to change your trajectory, then you have to increase. The first thing you increase is the number of written offers you're making. So when I would take these groups out, even though I've got 40, 50, 60 people with me, I'll still make 5 to 10 written offers in a neighborhood I've never been in, and no one's allowed to give me any information. No realtors can give me what comps are, nothing. I want to show them how I get my information just by talking to homeowners. The second thing that's going to happen, and this is going to floor you, is that 8 out of 10 sellers will invite us in, all of us. Let me say that again. 8 out of 10 sellers will invite us in, all of us. 80% of the time, I get to the seller's kitchen table. Let me explain what a seller is. There's a for sale sign in the yard. I'm talking to the seller, and their house is not under contract. If the house is under contract, in their mind, it's sold and they're trying to get moved. But if they do, their house is not under contract and there's a for sale sign, I'm talking to the owner, 80% of the time we're invited in to the house, and that's whether I'm by myself or I've got a bunch of people with me. Blows your mind, doesn't it? And on top of that, we talked about shadow sellers before. I find 1 to 3 shadow sellers every time I go out. And again, you saw that on Green Acre. You saw that when I did the house for Stonebridge. So if you are interested in learning about door knocking, or how to do T-bar offers, or how to do Teeter-Totter offers, I have a manual that I sell, and it's about 100 pages. And this is the lessons that I've learned over the course of 50 years, where to stand, what to wear, when's the best time to door knock, every question you can possibly think of about door knocking. What happens if it's in foreclosure? What happens if there's no for sale sign out front? What happens if there's a contractor van in the driveway? What happens if there's a for sale sign? How do you deal if it's a realtor sign? So that's all in this. Plus, again, how to make the teeter-totter offers that you've seen tonight, and also how to make T-ball offers. So normally this manual sells for $197, and tonight, again, this is gonna be through midnight tonight, you can get it for $147. Just got to use the code of special, and you go to billingkimcook.com and you'll find it there. Okay. Let's
I
talk
have a
about
quick question, Bill.
Yeah.
somebody's asking if you use comps.
I don't understand the question.
Like comps on properties. Are you using comps to know what it's worth? I'm not sure if it's while you're door knocking or just in
Okay.
general.
Okay, I go to a very special website. And I don't even like to share this website with people because I don't want to flood it. But to me, it's the best website I've ever found to find out things about a house. So whether it's comps or what property taxes are going for, or the history on the house, or who owns it, or who owned it before, or if it's a rental or who the tenants are, this website will answer every question you've got, and it's free. Again, I almost don't want to do this. Y'all might want to write this down because I normally don't give this out. So here's the website. God, I don't want to give this out. Ready? talktothedamnneighbors.com. So no, I don't use my phone. I don't use comps. I talk to people in neighborhoods, and that's how I get my information. And my information is better and more accurate than any website you're ever going to go to in your lifetime. Go talk to people. Ask for help. You know, if a house is for sale, like when we did Green Acre, when I found out that the house, the guy wanted to sell for 85,000, when I talked to the neighbors, I'd point at the house I was interested in and just say, this doesn't sound crazy, but there's a house over here that I heard might be for sale. Can you tell me anything about the house or the neighborhood or what things are selling for? And people are happy to give you all this information. And I just tell them, I love your house. I love your street. I love your neighborhood. My wife and I want to own a home here. Can you tell me about the neighborhood? That's all you do. So if you can give me
I'll tell you, I'm not a big door knocker, but when I buy a property, I have learned to go and knock on the doors and talk to the neighbors, because rent has been revealed to me by the neighbors is much higher than what I have found online.
Yep.
By sometimes hundreds of dollars.
Yep.
That I would have lost out on because nothing online was showing me what the rent should be.
And before you buy a house in a neighborhood, you should know about the neighborhood, the area, what's going on. And that's just what I do. So good question.
Well, I was fine with what I found online for the rent, but then I found out there was $200 more that online wasn't showing me because the neighbors told me what it could rent for.
Yep. And Susan, I think it said, well, properties are going for so high and they're just skyrocketing. When you're talking to investors who are in the business to read about this all day long, you're right. But when you're talking to homeowners, they don't know what we know. They don't read the papers. They don't read the journals we go to and the newsletters, and they don't go to the classes we go to. So they just talk to each other, and that's how they get an idea of what their house is worth. Okay, so let's talk about, because I want to finish on time and I want to make sure I do that, which I should be able to do. So let's talk about what's happening in today's market. Okay, so understand that there is a lack of inventory. We all know that. Lack of rentals, lack of houses for sale. And there's a lot of people who would like to sell their house and take the cash from it. But if they do sell, they're going to have to go find a house to buy. And they're terrified that they will not be able to find a house because they hear and they know that it's really hard to find a house. And that house needs to be affordable. Now, you might want to write that down. The house needs to be affordable, because I want to show you what's happened this year and what's made a lot of houses no longer affordable for the person who could have bought them last year. So we know that landlords are selling at a record pace. But here is a driving force that you need to be aware of in this market. So in 2021, the 30-year mortgage was 2.9%. Right now, today, you can get a 30-year mortgage is 5.7%. That's going rate. That's an increase of almost 100% in the interest on a mortgage for a 30-year fixed rate house. Now, let me kind of explain what happens with this increase. You have to understand the mechanics. We can say, well, interest rates have gone up, but what does that mean to the average buyer? So let's say you have a buyer and they can qualify for a mortgage, but in their mortgage payment, based on their income and what they feel comfortable with, the buyers decide we can't pay more than $1,100 a month for a mortgage. That's principal and interest. We can't pay more than $1,100. It's too much above that. If it's over that. And so they find a seller who's willing to sell a house for $250,000. They love the house. They want the house. Now, this is last year. And they go apply for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and they find out that the payments on this mortgage will be $1,040 a month. My question to you is, can they afford this house? Can they afford this $250,000 house? Now, they can afford $1,100 a month. The payment is $60 less than that. So yes, this mortgage works for them. They can afford a $250,000 house. Now, mortgage rates climb to 5.7%. Now what's the monthly payment? And again, if you don't know how to figure monthly payments, again, as real estate investors, our most important tool is a financial calculator. Learn how to use a 10B2. So the interest climbs to 5.7%. What is the monthly payment they can that they'll pay now on this $250,000 house? And the answer is the payment climbs to $1,451. So that's a $411 higher than they would have paid last year for this house. So now does the deal work? And the answer is no, because remember, they can only afford $1,100 a month. So they can't afford $1,451. And so therefore, they're stuck. Now, when they go shopping for a house, how much house can they afford? How much can they afford to pay? Again, they're stuck at $1,100 a month. That can't change. That's what they can afford. What can they afford to pay now at 5.7% interest? And the answer is they can no longer afford a $250,000 house. They can only afford a $189,524 house. Do you see that? So let's say you're that person who has the $250,000 house. Do you see that a lot of potential buyers that you would have had last year can no longer afford your house this year? And the way this works, it starts with the $10 million, $5 million houses. You start seeing less and less offers on those, and people can't afford those mortgages if they're going to get a mortgage to buy it. And then that trickles down to the $1 million houses, which trickles down to the $800,000 houses, which trickles down to the $500,000 houses, which trickles down to the $250,000 houses. And so it works its way down over the course of time. So as interest rates go up, there are less and less buyers for the more expensive houses, and that just works its way down. That's why this market has changed. And that's what one of the most important things you need to be aware of. So again, understand how to use a financial calculator. So again, it's normally 147 for this book, and it has all kind of problems in it, along with the answers, and shows you how to do cash flow diagrams. But this is something that we all need to know how to use as real estate investors. I learned how to use a financial calculator when I was in college, but a guy named Ray Alcorn back around 2001 really taught me how to make a calculator sing and dance. Okay, so we talked about earlier that the cheese is always moving, and it is. So over this course of this year, you can see that the cheese has moved. So what creative deal structures are working today? And the answer is pure options. You've seen that in action. Owner financing, you've seen that in action. Subject to deals, you've seen that in action. Also, something you're about to look at called master leasing and Lonnie deals. Lonnie deals we won't cover tonight. I will cover Lonnie deals at What Box in August, but I just don't have time tonight. But these are the things that are working right now. These are the structures. So again, if all you know how to do is a 70 cent on the dollar offer, the big damn hammer, that's all you know how to do. Can you imagine the number of deals you're walking away from? The number of deals you're not doing because you just don't know how to do it. Learn these techniques, learn these structures. Okay, so we're going to talk about another problem that happens on a regular basis. So in this case, this property this is in the Great Recession, this is in the downturn. And if we do have a pullback on prices, you'll see this again now. But I want you to see how to handle this problem. So this is Cox Farm Road. And the problem with this property, when the seller called me, I was at door knocking in the area, and this property was upside down in value. You've already seen me work with this, but it also has negative cash flow. So this has a double whammy on it. And do you ever want to own a home that has this upside down and has negative cash flow? And most of the time you're going to turn this deal down. And in this case, I'll tell you, the owner was trying to give me the house subject to deal, whatever I want to do, just take the house, take the payments, and I wouldn't do it. So you just saw me do a subject to deal and you saw that it was cash flowing. But in this case, if I did a subject to deal, that is the wrong structure for this deal. It makes it a very unsafe deal for me. So here's the story behind it. This goes back to 2013. And I was out door knocking with my buddy, Houston Long. And by the way, and again, I don't know if Joey's still on the call, but he will tell you that Houston was big time in Perel before Perel ever got cool with COVID. He's just a germaphobe and he carries big buckets of these things everywhere he goes and was always using them. We made fun of him because he's such a neat freak. Anyway, so with a guy called me up and told me about this property. He said, I need to get it sold. Is there any way we can meet? And I said, yeah, I'm 15 minutes away from you. Be happy to meet with you. So Houston and I drove over to his house. I got the address. And by the way, whenever a seller calls me, I only ask 2 questions. I don't have them fill out some sheet. They don't go to some website to fill out 4 pages of whatever to see if they're motivated. If they call me, that means they're motivated. And I only ask 2 questions. What's your address and when can we meet? I don't even ask them their names. I don't ask them anything about the house because I want to do that face to face. You know, communication is done face to face. So Houston and I drove out to this guy's house once, so we had the address. And as we turned onto his street, Houston started laughing. And he said, I was out here about 2 weeks ago and I met with this guy. He goes, there's no deal here. We waste our time coming out. And I said, why? He said, well, they're upside down in negative cash flow. I'll tell you something about Houston. You know, he's one of my best friends and I love the guy to death. But when I was going to Jack Miller and I was going to Pete Fortunato and I was going to Dyke Spotiford, David Tilney and John Schaub, Houston wouldn't go. I think he went to 1 or 2 of the meetings, but that was about it. He wouldn't go because he said, you know, I don't have time for it. I'm a family man. He had all kinds of excuses why he wasn't going and learning creative deal structuring. And when you don't get the education you need, when you're not going to the good classes, the good teachers, it's going to cost you dearly. People say, well, the course costs this much money. Think about the money that Houston's going to lose because he didn't know how to structure this because he wasn't going to Jack Miller at the time. It's sad. So anyway, when I pulled in the driveway, sure enough, the seller of this property knew Houston. You know, they shook hands. And the investor, the homeowner said, well, I talked to 3 or 4 different investors. They all said to call you. They wouldn't do the deal. And Houston confirmed that. And I thought it was very flattering, but I'm like, why didn't one of the 4 investors structure out this deal? So again, T-Bar, let's look at the seller situation. Now he had bought this house for his daughter and he had bought it in around 2005, 2006 at the peak of the market. And he had paid about, I think, $95,000 or $100,000 for this property. And it was 5 acres. It was horse property. It was fenced. And his daughter loved horses, but she couldn't qualify for mortgage. So he bought it for her. Mortgage is in his name. And then in 2009, 2010, his daughter moved out because she fell in love and just left him with the house. And so Bruce, who's the owner, he, didn't know what to do and he couldn't get it sold because the house was now upside down. So he rented it to a tenant. And that tenant, when the tenant moved in, and remember, landlords are not born knowing how to do the business. It's a learned thing. And he hadn't taken any landlording lessons. And so when that tenant moved in that he put in the house, the down payment check bounced. And it took 7 months for this owner to get the tenant out. And that tenant destroyed the house. So the owner fixed up the house when his daughter moved out, then fixed it up again when this, freeloader tenant moved out, rented it to another tenant. This time he asked for a cash down payment, but then that tenant didn't pay again. And this time the owner got him out in about 3 months. He was able to do an eviction. So he's learning how to do evictions real well. And he fixed it up again. And now he's just wanting done. And so this is the man that I met with. He had gone to 4 other investors for help and they couldn't help him because they were doing 70 cents on the dollar offers. And so now here he is, and he hates tenants, obviously. He's $25,000 upside down. So the house is worth about $70,000. He owes $95,000. At the time, the house was sitting vacant. So it's costing him $1,100 a month. So the mortgage payment is $900 a month with taxes and insurance. But he also has to cut the grass, keep the electricity on, the total cost every month was $1,100 a month. He was bleeding. And I talked to him about maybe doing a short sale or handing the keys back. And he said, I'm not going to do that. I promised I'd make this payment. It's not the bank's fault. I'm going to make the payment. So this was a very good man I was dealing with. And I said, well, why don't you just sell it and bring $25,000 to the closing table? And he said, yeah, I had that before I started doing all these rehabs, and now I don't have the cash on hand. And he goes, I just want to be done. So that's current position. Do you see how important the T-bar is? And the potential position is if he just accepts my offer, whatever offer I come up with, no more tenant headaches. Don't worry about it being upside down. Don't worry about negative cash flow. He doesn't have to do bankruptcy or give the property back. He doesn't need any cash, and he'll have no more worries. So he tells me what the problem is. And people always ask, how do I know how to structure the deal? And the answer is the person I'm talking to tells me how to structure it. They tell me what they need. So here's the deal structure. So he owed 95,000. Fair market value was 70. So 25,000 upside down. Mortgage payment was with PITI was $900 a month. And I knew the house would rent for 800. How do I know? It's inside my 5 mile circle. And the structure I was going to use here is called a performance master lease. So even though he was willing to give me the property, that was too dangerous for me. So again, when we go into uncertain times, like we're in right now, when you don't know what interest rates are going to do or what value is going to go, when you get to where you're not sure of things, then I switch, instead of buying properties and getting the deed and going and getting a mortgage, I'll do something called a master lease. And what a master lease is I rent the house. In this case, I would rent the house from Bruce. And I knew the house would rent for $800 a month. So I'm going to pay him $600 a month in rent. That means I can make $200 a month every month. But I have the right, this is what makes it a master lease, or it's also known as a sandwich lease. It's also known as a wraparound lease. But I have a lease that I've given to the owner, but I lease the property to my tenant, the person who's going to use the property. So that's what this is. So every month, my tenant pays me $800, and from that, I pay the owner of the property $600. Now, what makes it a performance master lease, using the word performance, is I don't owe the owner any money, any rent, until I've been paid first. Do you see how this makes this deal very safe? So the tenant doesn't pay me, I don't pay the owner. And so why did the owner agree to this? Why did Bruce agree to this? And the answer is he had no other choice. He was at wit's end and he hated tenants. Go back to the T-bar. So I also said, I don't want to buy the property right now, but I believe the market's going to come back and I want the right to buy it. Now look at the purchase price. And this is going to floor you. You probably didn't even know you could do this. My purchase price sometime in the next 7 years will be the then balance of the mortgage. In other words, there's not a number there. So every month he makes a payment, he makes that mortgage payment. Do you see that my purchase price is dropping down every month over the course of 7 years? So as the monthly payments are being made, my purchase price is going down. But also this is being done in 2013. I knew the market was in a turn. So though the property is worth $70,000 today, I know over the course of time, it's going to go up. So though it's upside down right now, give it a little bit of time and it will correct itself and I'll build equity. So I structured my way into this deal. I'm structuring this thing on purpose to keep it safe, to make it work, to make it profitable one day. I'm going to show you also how this looked from Bruce's point of view. So at the time you could do a mortgage modification called a HARP. You can't do that. It doesn't exist anymore. But back then that was something that people could turn to. So I had the owner do something called a HARP modification to his loan. And I said, your insurance is too high. I want you to shop your insurance. And I agreed to fight his property taxes. So this was going to help all the way around. And by the way, this took a total of 3 months. So we did the deal. I said, it's going to take me 3 to 6 months to get everything done, but he was okay with that. So here's how we funded the deal. First of all, there's no money out of my pocket anywhere. And I have an option to buy the property at some point in time, but I'm not obligated. I can if I choose to, but I don't have to. The owner did a HARP loan and it dropped the mortgage, his principal and interest payment from 755 to 450. That's significant. And the insurance dropped from $1,005 down to 590. And that was significant. And I filed his property taxes for him, and they dropped from 700 down to 351. So when I met him, when Houston and I pulled in the driveway, he was paying $1,100 a month. And when 3 months later, he was making $70 a month. Did this not change this man, Bruce's financial world? And the answer is yes. So I rented the house to a good tenant, $800 a month. I pay Bruce $600 a month only after I've been paid my $800 per month. I increased my monthly mailbox money by $200 a month, and that's about financial freedom. I agreed to pay the first $50 in repairs each month, so Bruce wouldn't have to pay that. But I also put that my tenant would pay the first $50 in repairs each month, so still no money out of my pocket. And I had an option where I was capturing both the appreciation of the properties that went up in value, but also the amortization of the property as he made his mortgage payments. So I was capturing both of those benefits. So let's talk about what you learned tonight. First of all, we looked at Boyd Mountain and we talked about selling creatively, and I used two pure options. We talked about William Street, where the man wanted to keep his home, and I agreed to pay his property taxes, and we used a pure option. With Green Acre Lane, I switched over to owner financing because he wanted his asking price, and I was willing to overpay for a house. On Stonebridge Court, it was someone who's going to lose the house to foreclosure. She was behind her parents. She was behind on her own mortgage. And I did this as a subject to deal, and then used the $10,000 I gave her to pay off the different people she owed. And she still had about $3,000 or $4,000 left over when we were done to use that however she wanted. So she was thrilled. You just saw Cox Farm. Again, that was upside down negative cash flow. No other investor would touch it. But by using something called a performance master lease with an option, the deal became very, very profitable. And you also saw the fastest, cheapest, most effective way to get face-to-face with sellers, and see that, 8 out of 10 sellers will invite you in the house if you just go knock on the door. But I don't want you to be overwhelmed, because real estate investing is really a simple business, and people make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. So creative deal structuring is just a language that we all learn over the course of time. Again, go to our website, click on Bill and Kim, go to my timeline, look at how long it took us to learn the different deal structuring techniques. And the thing that drives everything is you have to be out there making written offers. So again, if you're interested in learning how to door knock, or want to see how to do T-bar offers or teeter-totter offers, or where I stand or how I work, how I'm working foreclosures, you might want to think about ordering my door knocking manual. We'll pay for the shipping. Same thing on financial calculator. You need to know how to use a financial calculator. So if there's another course you want to take it, but don't sit back not knowing how to use a 10B2. That's just crazy. That's our tool we use. And finally, and I hope you attend this. I hope you take it amongst yourselves, because this is a complicated seminar. I'm not teaching you how to do subject to deals, and I'm not teaching how to do wrap mortgages, and I'm not teaching how to do master leasing. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm showing you how to use the different tools at one time. It's about structure stacking. So I teach another course, Lavina Jones Cox, in April of next year, where we will talk about how to do the different deal structures. It's a 4-day seminar we teach about subject to deals or owner carry, or we go into individual techniques. What box is about structure stacking? And again, normal price on this is $747, but tonight it's going to be discounted down to $597. And you're paying for it whether you attend or not. Learn the lessons. Don't be bypassing these deals. And again, the coupon code is going to be special, and you can sign up at billandkimcook.com. And I want to thank everybody for letting me be here and taking time to be here with me. So I'm going to unshare my screen, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
You can unmute yourself and ask questions. Rosemarie, I think you had one. Would you like to ask?
Let me get some more water first. I just gotta, because I live in a motorhome, it's right here.
Rosemarie, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, sir.
would you like to ask your question? I think.
Yeah,
Rosemary,
actually,
that's one of my
Yes.
favorite names. I used to watch Dick Van Dyke when I was a kid. 'Cause I'm
Rosemary
that old.
Clooney.
Yep. Rosemary Clooney, exactly right. So what's up,
Mhm.
Rosemary? Rosemary?
So, starting with the more recent question that just popped in my head before I forget, with this manual that you're selling, that would give me that give me all the step by step on how to do deals and stuff like that, especially for a newbie like myself.
Which one are you talking about?
The door knocking.
No, it's
how
not
to
going to
make
give you
written-
step by step on different deals. What the door knocking is about is how do I door knock? Where do I stand? What do I say? How do I work if it's in foreclosure? So it's about door knocking, but also it's about how to make offers. So what I do is I show you how to do a T-bar. I give you lots of examples of T-bars. In fact, you'll see the T-bar from the ranch. It's in there. So you see how to do a T-bar. Also, oftentimes when a homeowner is not home, I write the offer on the back of my card, and that's called a Teeter-Totter offer, a price terms offer. So that's what you'll learn on the door knocking manual. It's not about deal structuring. It's about how do I make a written offer using a T-bar and Teeter-Totter. And again, what do I say at the door? How to address? When do I door knock? That sort of thing.
Okay, and then the actual door knocking question I have, what do you recommend for someone that has physically cannot go door knocking?
Don't go door knocking.
So what other options would you recommend?
I'm the wrong person to ask that because I'm a door knocker. So my guess is you may be able to hire someone to go door knocking, but I can hire people to re-roof a house, redo a gutter, pressure wash my house. I can hire people to do my books. I can hire people to lease up a house for me. The one thing I can't do, I can't hire someone to sit at the kitchen table for me.
No, exactly. That is yeah. If you want the job done right, you have to do it yourself, kind of
Yeah,
mentality. And
yeah,
I've tried that
yeah,
before with some family members, and it's not the same.
yeah. And so my job is the kitchen table, no matter what. That's where I belong. Everything else I can hire done. And again, to answer your question, there are people who do mail outs and they have programs on that. And there's people who do, telemarketing calls. You can make offers through FMLS. You can call realtors on a regular basis. It's just, I feel comfortable talking about the things that I do and I'm good at. And I've never been one that did mail outs. I was never one that did bandit signs. I didn't do any of that. I was always a door knocker. So I'm the wrong person to ask, and probably somebody else on this phone call can help you a lot better than I can.
Okay, appreciate that. Appreciate your honesty.
Sure. And Rosemary, where exactly in Alabama are you from?
I'm in Lakeland.
No, where in Alabama are you from?
I'm not from Alabama.
With that accent, I felt certain you're from Alabama.
No, I'm from New York City.
Really? I never would have guessed.
Yeah, exactly. Wait till I say coffee, then it comes out.
Coffee. Yeah.
Coffee, yeah.
Other questions?
Great. No one else has a question? I don't believe that.
do.
Ask.
That's
You-
Burley. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can put my video on. Hi.
Oh, there you
Um,
are.
Hi.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, Bill, for doing this and sharing so much of your knowledge. I really appreciate it. I'm a newbie too, and I've learned a lot.
I
so
gotta explain
far.
one thing. So, as far as I didn't want to do this, Adrian has some very, very blackmailish pictures of me.
Oh, really?
And I didn't have a choice. He said, would you like me to show these pictures around? You might want to teach. If you teach, I may not show them. And so, yeah, I'm being blackmailed into doing this.
Yeah, well, I'm
Can we
glad
see that,
you
Adrian?
came still. I'm glad you did. This is my question, the question that I have. I have a seller. I did some direct mail advertising, and there's a seller who reached out to me and called me. Now she wants to sell a house, and she's put the house in the market several times. It failed, and now she has put it back in the market again.
Wait,
and
define, put it back in the market or put it in the market. What does that mean? Is it listed with a realtor? Is there for sale sign out
yes,
front?
it's listed. Yes, it's listed with a realtor, but it went to the market several times and it failed. Now it's back up again. And she wants to sell it for 535, and she said not less than 500,000 because she thinks it's worth more than that. And she mentioned that it was appraised for 625. And I talked to her and asked her, well, why do you want to sell this nice house? Because it's a
Good.
huge house. It's over 3,062 square footage. It has a pool. It has a private access to a lake, and all of that. But it's an old house. It was built in 1974. But anyway, I asked her why she wants to sell it, and she said that she moved to a new house, and she's with a Homeward program where she's making $100 payment until she closed at a new house. Well, I called, and another information that she said is Homeward is asking her $350,000 down. And I kind of did some research and called Homeward to find out about the whole program, how it works. And I find out today that a representative mentioned that the Homeward program works like a regular home loan. They buy a house cash for you, and then you get a loan from them, kind of thing, until you pay off the loan with them. So now I'm scheduled to see the property tomorrow. And based on what you said, I definitely need to talk to her like face to face and sit down, hopefully a table or somewhat. But my question is, how do I lean into the T-bar? Since she already said, actually, she sent me a text and saying, hey, the pricing is what I'm looking for, and so on and so forth.
Well, almost everybody I've ever talked to with a house, they're interested in the price, but I want to find out what's going on. So I have a lot of questions. Why did she turn to Homeward? Why did the property fall out so many times, a number of times? What is a realtor like? What have they done? Why right now in this market, when the market is hot as it is, why hasn't her house sold? So it keeps falling out. Why does it keep falling out? You said it was the way you described it. It was a great house, nice location, has a pool in the backyard. Why isn't it selling? Is she asking too much?
Yeah,
going
she
on?
said that. She said that a lot of that house doesn't have much comps because that's the only house that has a 5 bedrooms, 4 bath. All the other houses doesn't have that much square footage.
You can still do comps if you have a
Right, I know.
3-bedroom house, and you have to take into account there's an extra bedroom or something like that. So you can still do comps even though our house is different. But my question is, why did this house not sell in the hottest market, that we've ever seen in our lifetimes? With, well, back when she had on the market, my guess is interest rates were even lower. Why didn't it sell? So that's what I'm going to
One of the
focus
reasons
on.
I did ask that question, and one of the answers that she gave me was there was one buyer who was going to buy, and then either the loan didn't go through and it fell out. That was the reason. That was the explanation that she gave me.
Okay, but you said it fell out a couple times.
Yep.
So what were the other reasons why it fell out?
She said for another one, she says that the buyer didn't come through. That's all she said to me.
Okay, but then you have to ask the question, well, why? What happened? Just when someone says something and it's a surface question, your job is to dig. I want you to think. I want you to think of this. Okay.
Right.
This will help you see it. Have you ever been to the doctor?
Of course.
Okay, you go to the doctor. So let's sit back and say that you walk into a doctor's office and you've been throwing up blood for the last 3 days, and you have a sharp pain in your left side. It's just killing you, and you can't sleep, and you're miserable. And so the doctor puts you in the exam room. So you're laying there on that little table that's covered with that paper, and you're just feeling terrible. You've been throwing up blood. Your side hurts. When the doctor comes in, you know, they already would have checked your vitals, you know, temperature, blood pressure, that sort of thing.
Right.
But when the doctor comes in, what's the first thing the doctor does?
He talks to you, I
He
think.
doesn't, he
I
doesn't,
don't know.
he doesn't talk to you. He doesn't
Okay.
talk to you. What does he do? Someone help here.
Looks at the diagnosis
Nope.
or no? Okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
actually, what's wrong?
What?
He asked questions.
He asks questions. He doesn't talk to you. He asks questions of you.
Okay.
And so what are some of the questions he's going to ask you?
How long have you been throwing up, I think?
Yep.
Right.
What else? What else?
Ah.
Can I
Someone else
poke you
help me
where
out?
it hurts?
No, I just want to say with the two of us, I want you to, you're not a doctor, but if you were, okay, how long has it been going on? Keep going. What's another
Um,
question?
ah. What else is hurting you?
Keep going.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Everybody jump in and help. What are some other
Yes,
questions?
please.
Y'all jump in. What are some other
Do
questions?
you
the
have it in
doctor's
your
gonna ask?
family? Does your any family members?
Family history. Does it
Yeah.
happen when you eat? Does it happen when you sleep? You know, have you
Oh.
been out of the country? Are you allergic to something? Has this ever happened before? Do you have a family history of this?
Right.
What type of blood? How much blood is coming up? I mean, I can just go down a list of questions I'm going to ask. And so here's a problem that most Americans have. Our curiosity gene has been squashed. And it's done because, have you ever been around a 7-year-old?
Yes.
What do 7-year-olds do all day long?
Ask questions and jump
Why?
around.
They'll drive you crazy with why. Now, then they go to school. The first day of school, the very first class, the bell rings and they sit down. What's the very first thing the teacher tells them?
Be quiet.
Be quiet. I'll tell you when you can talk. Raise your hand for permission to go to the bathroom. Pay attention. And for the next 12 years, kids are told what they're going to learn and how they're going to learn it, but don't ask questions. Don't rock the boat. And so what we're really teaching kids to do is be really good employees who can work at McDonald's or work at a car dealership or do all these things without asking any questions. Don't rock the boat. We'll tell you when you're going to eat, the bell will ring. We'll tell you when you can go home, the bell will ring. We'll tell you when you can go to the bathroom, raise your hand and ask permission. Are you kidding me? And so this little 7-year-old that had nothing but curiosity flowing out of them and they ask questions. Why can't I eat dog poop? Why can't I drink out of the mud puddle? Why can't I stick Cheerios up my sister's nose? Right? They did nothing but ask questions all day long. And then this person graduates high school, unable to ask questions. So one of the things you need to know how to do and relearn how to do is learn to be curious, learn to ask questions, and don't be scared. Because if someone looks at me and says, you know, I'd rather not answer these questions, I just look at them and say, I tell them about the doctor analogy. And I said, you know, I'm here to help you. And I want to understand what's going on. And like a doctor, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. Now, if you don't want me to help, if you want me to tell you everything's going to be doing great, we'll join hands and we'll sing Kumbaya together and I'll leave because I don't have the information with which to help you with. So I'm the wrong answer. I'm the wrong person to turn to, and I'll just leave and I won't bother you anymore. Or let me ask some questions so I can understand what the problem is, because I'm solution driven. But to come up with a solution, I got to find out what the problem is first. And so what the doctor would do, to go back to the doctor, is they're going to ask you a lot of questions. And then when they're done asking questions, they're going to have you lay back on that table, right?
Right.
And then what will the doctor do?
Look at the pain or look at what's causing the pain.
They'll poke.
You.
They're going to poke.
Yeah.
They're going to press in. Now, when they press in on your left side that's hurting you, is that going to hurt you?
Of course.
Yes. Is it uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yes. Is the doctor trying to hurt you and make you feel bad?
No.
No, they're probing to find out what the problem is so they can fix it. And so when I'm sitting down in someone's house, I'm going to ask the hard questions. And if they stop me and they don't want to answer, again, I'll use this doctor analogy that I just used with you and say, I can do this, whichever way you want to go, but don't make me sing kumbaya and tell you everything's great. Let me help. Let me figure this out. I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm really good at this. You want me to help you? I'll be happy to.
Okay.
So think about when I did the guy with the property taxes, I was asking him all kinds of questions. But when someone locks down on me, or I don't want to talk about this, or I just want my $500,000, or it's just going to be this way, I can't help them. And if you were the patient in this doctor's office and he looked at you and said, well, how long has this been going on? And you say, oh, I'm not going to tell you. Well, how bad is the pain? I'm not going to tell you. Well, I need to poke your side. No, I won't let you do that. What's the doctor going to say to you? Let's say you just say, I just want the medication. Just write me a prescription. What will the doctor say?
You're not a patient. You don't have any problem.
Yeah, get out. I can't prescribe something to you till I know what's wrong with you. I will not give you pills. And he'll look at you and tell you to leave. I do exactly the same thing in the house. So meet with this lady. And when you're meeting with her and you're talking to her, listen with your eyes.
Okay.
So just because someone tells you something, I want you to listen with your eyes. Watch how they talk. Watch their body language. You don't have to go get a body language book. When you see someone upset, do you know it?
Yes.
When you see someone that's happy, do you know it?
Yes.
When someone's hurting, do you know it?
Yes.
And to use an example in this case, I remember years ago, I used this example a lot. There was a lady that I was talking to. I knocked on her door and she let me in. Her husband had been transferred to Texas and it was summertime and we were getting about a month before school started and she couldn't get her house sold. The realtor told her she had to do all this work to the house before they could get it sold. So the realtors weren't even trying to sell it. And she didn't have the money nor the ability to fix the house. She had 3 kids there and 2 dogs. And the husband was in Texas. And she was at wit's end. And when I knocked on the door and we sat down and I started asking questions, as I was doing this, she grabbed the kitchen trash can and she puked into it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Would you say that she was frazzled? She was frazzled. She was at wit's end. And here somebody finally was sitting there talking to her and asking her questions to understand the problem. Nobody else would do that. And I was able to do that deal because I just took time and I cared. But if I had talked to her over the phone, or worse yet, text or emailed, could I have heard her throw open the trash can? Could I have smelled her after she threw open the trash can? When she pulled her head back and she had vomit coming down her chin, would I have seen that? No. But by me being there, I was able to understand the degree of the problem that she had, why she was so bothered, how much she was bothered, and no one was listening to her. Nobody cared. So with this lady, I can't tell you what the problem is or what the structure may be because you don't even know what the problem is going to be. And what happens if she's not able to buy the house that she's trying to buy? And what happens if she's not able to sell the house that she's trying to sell? What happens here? What does she like about the house she's moving to? What doesn't she like about the house she's living in?
Okay.
Why did she go with this company, Homeward? Why is she with them, not someone else? The mortgage she's going to get from Homeward, since they're going to provide the mortgage, what kind of mortgage is it?
Okay.
What kind of terms are in that note? What's the interest rate? Is there a balloon?
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes. The questions. Yes. I need to know what type of questions. I need to ask.
But let me ask you this. How did I learn which questions to ask? Do you think the first time I went out, I knew to ask any of these questions?
No.
No. I just went out and went out and went out and went out. In fact, I'm looking down in the right-hand corner of my screen and I see that David Tilney is online. You want to talk about a great real estate investor? Y'all heard me say earlier that I had teachers that I go to today. David Tilney is one of them. David, you want to unmute? He may not be in the room. He may be there. but y'all saw me cover master leasing. When I did Cox Farm, you saw me cover master lease and performance master lease. I learned that from David Tilden. He's unmuted. Hey, David.
Hi, Bill.
I can see my screen now, and I just saw your name pop up, and now I'm very nervous.
Well, what can I tell you? Maybe you should be.
I'm gonna stop for a second. And did I answer your question?
Yes, that did. That
Okay.
did, because I think the answer is mostly I need to ask her a lot of questions and find out what the real problem is.
Okay. And
and
I want
then
to come.
from there-
Okay, I want to come back to David Tilney for a second. David, we talked. I showed him a deal that I did, which involved a master lease. Can you talk about the benefits of a master lease? Because this homeowner was willing to give me the house, subject to or whatever I wanted to do, but it was upside down with a negative cash flow, and I would not take title to this property because it was too dangerous. So, can you talk about the benefits of master leasing?
Sure. I really don't know where to start, but the first thing I'd say is most people that buy single family houses as investments don't make any money initially. By the time they pay 30 to 40% operating expenses and then pay debt service and then have money on the side to take care of roof replacements or air conditioning replacements, there's not much left over in the initial years. Master leasing is a different deal, because you're leasing someone else's asset with a right to sublease it. And you're not going to lease it for less than you can sublease it for. So day one, you can get a positive cash flow. And from Bill's example, the owner was underwater, but that didn't matter to Bill. I mean, Bill's approach could have been, even if there was a negative cash flow on the mortgage, he could have been said, I'll lose you less than you're losing with a vacant house. And let's think about this for a second. If you go into title on a property, meaning you buy a property, you're there. And if the market goes upside down, it's very hard to get out of title. And a lot of people lose everything they've got because they have a debt that they promised to pay, and they can't sell the property, and they can't pay the debt because all of a sudden they can't lease the property for the amount of the mortgage payments. Whereas if you lease the property, you get to create the paperwork. And as the master tenant, your paperwork is going to be pro tenant, meaning you will have some kind of an escape clause that if we have a depression under some terms and conditions, you can cancel the lease. You can't do that if you're in title on a property. When you buy a property, someone puts papers under your nose and you have to sign their paperwork, meaning the mortgage company's debts and those kinds of things. There is no standard and approved paperwork when you do a master lease. You get to create it. So you can be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When you're the master tenant, your paperwork is going to be very pro-tenant. And then when you're subleasing it to your occupant, it's going to be very pro-landlord. The other thing I need to say about master leasing, which is really so important, and Bill's pointed it out here, but I'm just going to kind of underline it for him, is there's no one size fits all. Every deal is a unique, separate deal. And Bill said it just right. The point is to ask lots of questions, and you're there not for the benefits you get, but you're there to help people. I mean, Bill really says that so well when he does a door knocking class. He says, I'm not here to buy mortgage or anything with a house. I'm just here to try and help. And if I can't solve the problem, maybe I know someone who can. So you've got to be about the other person. And when you're about the other person and you ask lots of questions about their needs and their motivations and what they're trying to accomplish, then when you get all of that, then you can come up with some possible solutions to their problem. And the key of the master lease is you can see what they need, give them what they need, and you get to take everything else. And there's a lot of other benefits that the real estate can give. I think that's enough, Bill.
Can you talk about, because you have a class coming up, I believe in September, or is it October?
No, I can't talk about that.
Okay. David has a class coming up on master leasing. And so you have to take, it's a 3-day class. It's going to be online. And
It's
2
after
days,
Bill's class, just to point out, it's after Bill's August class.
and his
You
class
gotta
is a lot
take
better.
one.
And his class is better than my class. Um, and let me say it to you this way. I'll tell you his website here in a second, but someone asked me a question the other day that if Kim and I lost everything, and we had to start all over again, we had no credit, no money, we had nothing. And I had to start all over again. And I was only allowed to have one deal structuring tool in my toolbox. That's it. If I had to start all over one tool, what would that tool be? Without a question, without a doubt, it would be a master lease. That would be the tool I would get with. If you allowed me to have 2 tools, it would be a master lease with an option. Again, y'all saw that with Cox Farm. And that to me just makes the most sense because you can get in and get out with no risk. So you saw a house upside down, negative cash flow. I was able to make that deal work with a performance master lease and an option. So David's class, go to David Tilney, Tilney, davidtilney.com. It's a phenomenal class. I can't say enough things about him. And I will tell you the most important lesson I ever learned from David Tilney. This is how smart he is. He was staying at, y'all saw Boyd Mountain, y'all saw our horse ranch. So this goes back a number of years ago before we sold it. So David and his wife, Mary, were staying with us. And David and I were having coffee one morning and we were talking about capital assets. And one of the things I said was that at the time we had about 35 single family rentals. And I said, our rental property is our most important capital assets that we have. And David looked at me. I'll never forget this. David looked at me and he said, Bill, is a single family rental property a capital asset? Well, I was very sure it was until David asked me whether it was. And all of a sudden I was unsure of my answer anymore. I mean, I'm a finance major. I know where a rental property belongs on the balance sheet. So of course it's a capital asset. And I said, yeah, I'm sure it's a capital asset. He said, are you real sure about that, Bill? And then he looked and said, if the tenant quits paying the rent, is a rental property still a capital asset or is it a liability? It becomes a liability. So this great lesson that I learned from David is, as real estate investors, as landlords, what is our true capital asset? It's not the sticks and bricks. It's the tenants in the home who are paying you. That's your capital asset. So the house you use to capture your capital assets. So you want to have really good homes in really good neighborhoods with great schools and great shopping and convenient to everything. And you get your very best capital assets. And that was a phenomenal lesson he taught me. And I went back and started working with my tenants a completely different way. I started buying much better properties. That really changed our investing world. So when David teaches a class, he'll teach a 2-day class on just landlording, knowing how to do it, because you can't rent someone's property from them and rent to someone else unless you're a good landlord first. So you do that. Then on the 3rd day, he teaches master leasing, and it is a phenomenal course. Go to davidtilney.com, TILNEY.com. It is a great, great course. And this would be online. It'd be a Zoom call. So there's no reason why you can't be there, but just an outstanding course. And I also see, now that I can see the screen, a good friend of mine, Derek Dombeck, is on this call. And I got asked the question earlier, what happens if you're physically impaired where you can't go door knock? If you can't go do that, what do you do? And again, Derek is a really good friend of mine. Derek, can you unmute if you're there?
Bill, before you do that, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Mary has a question. Mary wants to know your PO box so we can send the check.
David,
I would tear
can
it
I
up.
answer that one for you? I'll give him my PO box for you. And by the way, I just realized why you asked if I was from Alabama. It's Mobile Notary, not Mobile. I just noticed that on my name.
No, I was joking because of your accent. I know that you're not from Alabama. I'm aware
You'll be
of that.
surprised. You'll be surprised how somebody is like, how can you not mess that up? I'm from New York. It's like blatant New York City right there.
Yeah, no, you're in New York City. But anyway, my friend Derek Dombeck just unmuted and he's got his video going. And again, I was asked the question of, if I wasn't door knocking, what would I do? And the answer is I'm not qualified to answer that question. But Derek Dombeck is. He is phenomenal at lots of different marketing. And I've had the chance a number of times to listen to him on the phone because he lives in Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere. And so before he will get in his car and go drive, he can't work a 5-mile circle. There's nobody there but cows. And so he has to drive further before he gets in his car and goes and drives an hour and a half to get somewhere. He's going to talk to them on the phone first. And Derek is the best person I've ever heard in my life on the phone with a seller. But Derek, if you'll talk a little bit about how do you find your deals? And then when you're talking to them, how do you do that? Because you're so good at it.
Yeah. I want to preface this with, I've got a very dark video. I'm sitting in my truck and my wife and I and our family are on a 5-week cross-country trip. So I just actually put 2 properties under contract this week, both subject to, both remotely. I haven't been in either one. And it really comes down to very, very similar to what Bill does, face to face across the kitchen table. I learned how to do over the phone, and listening to cues. You can't see their body language, but you can still hear their tone in their voice. Maybe their voice cracks a little bit. Maybe you hear them sniffle. Really just paying attention to how they're saying it, even more so than what they're saying. And I'm very blunt, not rude, but I'm blunt to the point where I just tell people, because we do work about 100 5-mile circles around about 100 Walmarts. So, we can't, we're working the whole state of
Oh, where are we
Wisconsin,
going?
basically. And
David, wait, hang on one second. David, David, you need to mute your mic.
Sorry, I just knew you were going to turn this way.
David, mute your mic.
we should let him go, Bill. I want to hear what he says to Mary.
Well, this is about the time they start having hot sex.
So it can be done over the phone. I don't remember who asked the question earlier because I was driving while I was listening to this. But you said you can't physically go and door knock. What we do is, we have multiple marketing channels. Direct mail, ringless voicemail, texting, and I will have all my leads come into an answering service, and the answering service is going to do 2 things. They're going to lightly, check to see how motivated the leads are, and then they will put them on either my calendar, or I now have trained an acquisition manager to take these phone calls as well. But basically, we're making sure by the time we actually go and physically drive to that property, we're about 80 to 90% sure that we're going to go to contract, and we're really just going to view the property to verify that everything that was said to us is in fact true. So it can be done. There's really no magic to it. It's like Bill said earlier. I hate giving Bill accolades. He knows that, because we bust each other's chops any chance we get. But he's true. You don't learn it the first time you do it. You just keep doing it more and more and more. What I did was I kind of kept a log of, like, record your phone calls and go back and listen to them. And as you get a seller to that point in the call where the tone has changed, they're leaning towards doing a deal with you. What did you say? How did you say it? What did they say? How did they say it? Start making a log, and before long, you're going to start understanding that there's patterns. I use a lot of storytelling. I use a lot of comparisons to things that have happened in my life. So if I'm dealing with an estate and somebody lost their parents, well, I lost my father 14 years ago. So I'll get vulnerable, and I'll when I tell them, I know how you feel, I'm not just giving them lip service. I will literally say, I know how you feel. I lost my father 14 years ago. It was a real struggle for my family. Become a real person, actually care about solving their problem, and you can do all of this remotely or from the phone.
Thank you. It was me, Rosemary, that actually asked that question because
Okay.
of what I've been doing is um I'm not at the point where I could use mailers and stuff, but I have put stuff out there in different type of online media and kind of let people know slowly, hey, listen, if you know somebody's in a situation, please give them my number. So that's kind of what I've been doing slowly but surely.
And
So
for
I
everyone
just
else,
put, sorry, go ahead, Derek.
well, I was just going to say, for everyone else on the call, I believe I still have the standing record as a guest speaker for the longest Q&A. So if you all can keep Bill up until at least 2:30 a.m., he could beat me, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Hey, Derek,
Just
you know
throwing that out
me.
there.
Hey, buddy, you've known me for a very long time. Do you think there's a chance in hell I'm gonna be awake at 3 o'clock in the morning? I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, only if you're getting up to piss. That's about it.
So I just put in the chat when Derek was here a few months ago. I think it was February. It looks like I put the recording from whenever he was here in the chat when he talked about that, and that recording is almost 3 hours long. But so what I want to do here real quick, we have 3 questions and we'll do those, and then we're going to wrap it up officially, and we can stay on afterwards.
Let me interrupt for 1 second. I want to say again, so since you put that recording of Derek up, I kid you not, and Derek and Adrian's part of this too, we all bust back and forth, but my admiration for Derek is beyond reason. He is, I'd put my motorhome in his driveway, and his office, it was right next to where our motorhome was, and he would raise the window, and I would listen to him on the phone, and I was mesmerized. He was so good at it and talking to people. So if you have Derek recorded talking about this and you're wanting to know how to talk to people or how to use the phone, I told you, I'm not the right guy, but he is. So go and listen to that recording. Take the time. If nothing else, click on it and save it or whatever it is you do, but listen to Derek teach because he really knows his stuff forward and backwards.
That reminds me, there's also a good interview that you did with Derek a few years ago. That was really good. I had actually my team listen to it. It was on the same topic of just how he talks to people on the phone and gets to know them.
It's on my website. Go to Bill and Kim Cook and you'll see Derek there.
Right, so
it's going back and forth.
Let's get these questions because some people have been waiting for a bit. All right, how do you find your money for the deals, especially the cash offers? Bill, if you don't have the cash, I think this is worded as.
Adrian, I want you to answer this question.
Well, private money is how I do it. Friends and family that have money that don't want to do the work, but they either want to be involved in real estate or they want to diversify, and then they lend it. And my assumption is you are the same way, if it's not owner financing, because a lot of your teeter-totter offers are the owner financing, and then the cash would be the private money.
Yeah, and I haven't been to a bank, and I don't say this proudly. I just haven't been to a bank since 2006 because they made it very hard to get loans, meaning lots and lots of documents, and they wanted all my rental property rent rolls, and they just made it difficult. And I learned how to go talk to people, and I've learned that, like, if someone has their money in a CD, which is, let's say right now, someone has money in a CD earning 0.5 or 1 or 1.5 or 2%, and you'll pay 5%, and it's secured to the property, and you have a good reputation, and they feel comfortable with you, why would they not want to get 5% versus the 1.5% the bank's paying? And I just turned to private money because it was just much easier to work with private money. However, if I was going to go get a mortgage and could get a 30-year mortgage back when an investor could, even now, let's say I can get an investor mortgage at 7%. To me, that's still a deal, because in 1984, when I bought my first house, the mortgage rate was like 14.3%. I think that was the interest rate on my first mortgage. bought the house in Kennesaw, Georgia. It was 14.3%. And I was lucky to get it and felt good getting it. So when I see 7%, I'm looking going, man, that's a steal. So I would go to a bank. It's just, I haven't needed to for a long time. But one thing to know is I do not use my houses that I own already as collateral for other deals I'm going to go do. The whole goal was for us to get free and clear on our properties, and we got free and clear on our properties, and I will not encumber them again. So each deal I do stands on its own. Each deal has to arrange its own financing. So when you saw Cox Farm, you saw me do a master lease with an option. It stood on its own. When I did Green Acre, that was an owner finance deal. It stood on its own. When you saw me do Stonebridge, it was a subject to deal. It stood on its own. When we did our horse ranch, when I bought that house and that property in 1999, that was a subject to deal with an owner carry for the equity in it. For I think the owner carry was for like 8 months or 9 months. So you just learn to do creative things. It's not that I don't go to banks. It's just there's other ways that are easier, but there are ways you have to learn how to do it. Derek, I'm curious, when you're doing your deals, how do you fund them? Because I know you're also a big time lender.
Bill, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was trying to unmute myself. So we went through, you know, what a lot of people went through and don't use banks for anything anymore, and then started raising private capital for all of our deals, and that actually led to us raising way more capital than we could ever use, and we turned into hard money lenders. And so, you know, we're talking about 10 years ago through today. Very, very similar to what you had said, right? We were just making relationships with people we knew, people we met at the REIAs. Over time, you grow a reputation, a good reputation, and people are looking to you as the authority. So at this point, I mean, we pay our investors 9%, and I have no problem doing that, even on my own deals, instead of going to a bank and getting it for 5, 6, or 7. And beyond that, if you don't have the cash, then make your cash offer in that teeter-totter. Make that cash offer so undesirable that they'll lean towards the terms offer. And if they do accept the cash offer that was so undesirable, it'll be pretty easy for you to find somebody to partner with or lend the money, because you got it at a smoking deal. That's what I would advise people that don't think they have access to cash.
And I want to turn now to David Tilney and ask him the same question. As far as David, how do you finance your deals, especially when you were starting off? Let's go back to the beginning. Can you tell us how you were financing your deals when you got started? Because that was 1981, 1982.
Bill, did you just ask me a question? We're out walking, so say it again if you did.
We were talking about how do you fund your deals. I got asked that question. And let's say you're going to do a cash offer. You do a terms offer and a cash offer. They accept your cash offer. Where do you get that cash from? Go back to the beginning when you were starting off. How did you fund your deals when you needed cash to come in?
Yeah, that's a little bit complicated in that when I started, I started doing subject to wrapping the financing and selling it. Then I did foreclosures, and I had 2 big lines of credit with 2 different banks, and that helped. But I quickly discovered that the banks want to turn you into money junkies, and they want to make you serfs forever. So I started doing business with private lenders, and that was a much better deal for me because, you think that the private individual walks their money into the bank and loans it to the bank at 0.01% interest, and then the bank turns around and loans it out at a much higher rate. If you can capture the guy walking in the door and grab him and make a deal with him directly, he doesn't have a loan committee, and there's not times when they're not loaning money. They got to put their money out. Much better to do business with private lenders. And the day I stopped doing business with banks, that was a major change in my real estate investing. I started in 78, and exactly when I changed to private lenders, I can't tell you, but it was in the early 80s at some point.
And one of the things I want y'all to hear is I have a lot of friends. Kim and I are blessed to have a lot of friends around the country. And that's come because we've just been doing this for so long. And
Bill, can I correct you? Kim has a lot of friends around the country and she takes you along. Tell the truth.
Derek, I so agree with that statement. That's so true.
Thank you
No,
for being
no.
here, Derek.
did you not know I'm still on the call, Derek? David, I'm on the call
yeah.
still.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, we know. Finish your point now, Bill, but just tell the truth.
But anyway, so we have friends around the country, but I want y'all to know. So as I turn to friends like Derek or David, or Adrian, and I'm going to these guys and just saying, hey, I want y'all to answer the question. This is why you attend the seminars. This is why you go to your REIA. You want to build a network of friends that when you have a deal that you're questioning about, or how do I do this, or what would you do here? You want to have that network of friends and talk to them regular. Because I know that Derek and I talk a regular basis, and oftentimes we'll bring up a deal. I'll do that with Adrian. I'll do that with David. What would you do here? Or how would you do that? Or what'd you do in this situation? So as you're on this call, don't think of yourself as a lone wolf. Build friends around you because they're going to be your best source of information. So I just want to, you're watching that in action right now. So this is being recorded, which is neat. So people will be able to come back and listen to this. And it's just so important to have that network. Other questions?
Chris Wassel, are you able to unmute? You still had a question?
Sorry, I'm having to work with a phone for audio.
You're good, man. We can hear you.
Yeah, I was hoping to get some input on. Bill, Adrian actually told me to call you not that long ago, and I was intimidated because I don't put in the work enough. I don't put in enough offers. But now you're here, I got to ask. I have a
hang on a second, Chris. Chris, hang on a second. Just so you know,
I gotta say, from what
just so you know, Chris, I will kick you in the ass. So when I'm talking to people and they're not out making the offers, I will bring that up. I'll say, this is part of the start off is, get out there. But you can see on my thing, my phone number is sitting there. People always ask, do I coach or mentor? And the answer is no. But I give out my phone number to everybody. You're welcome to call me. And I'll tell you this also, you can call David and David will answer his phone. I've been with him many times when he's gotten calls from all across the country from different investors. Pete's the same way. Dykes is the same way. These folks get calls from everywhere and they're always taking the phone calls. So Chris, I don't want you to be intimidated by me because I'm just a guy, right? So go ahead with your question.
Well, I have one, and from what you said earlier, I would call her the patient that won't answer any questions. She had a code enforcement issue I offered to help her on. I said, I'll take care of it for free if we just talk to me about the house. Maybe we can make a deal, maybe we can't. And I got code enforcement. And I offered free lawn care. So I've been mowing her lawn for a couple months for free. But she's an out-of-state owner. I got her out of her code enforcement issue, made her an offer, the hammer, I guess, the big hammer, as you would call it. And I've just been taking care of her lawn and keeping in touch with her. She insists she wants cash, but won't give me a number back. And she just kind of stalled on the property. I mean, the thing's getting slowly eaten away by the rats. Been sitting vacant for probably a couple months now. And I'm kind of stuck. It needs
where does she live?
She is over on the Gulf Coast. I cannot think of the name of the town off the top of my head right now.
Okay, when you say Gulf Coast, that's most of Florida on the western side. So you're in Lakeland. How far away is she from you?
About an hour and a half.
Well, damn, get in your damn car.
No, we talked a lot in person. She was there for the code enforcement issue. So I talked to her for quite a while in person, and I talked to her. I call her now. I touch base every couple weeks, and we talk for probably a good hour every couple weeks. So there's a strong rapport there, but I'm not sure. I guess my concern is I think I could get her to go with a master lease of some kind, even though she's insisting on cash. She won't entertain an owner finance. I think she's scared to turn over, ownership of the property. Another notable thing is it was sold to her on a quitclaim deed. But she did sound interested in a
Whoa,
long-term lease. But
go back to quitclaim deed. What about a quitclaim deed? What?
That's how she purchased it. So that's how I would be able to buy it.
Well, you don't want a quitclaim deed. You want to buy it using a warranty deed.
Right. So that's one thing I don't know how to go about. But the other one is I can't get her to give me a number. And really anything over the big hammer would be too much for this house. I mean, it's almost a tear down.
How long does she expect you to keep mowing the yard and take care of the property for free?
No idea. I told her I would, so I'll just keep doing it until we figure it out.
Okay, first of all, whenever I'm dealing with something important, I'm going to get face to face. So that's an hour and a half drive. That's not a big drive, but I'm going to work out a time that, and when I go there, I'm going to take donuts or cookies or, something that's enjoyable, macaroons. And then we'll sit down and we'll talk. And I'm not going to drive an hour. This is where Derek's really good. Before he'll get in his car, he's going to have that meeting set up. For me, because I work a 5 mile circle, I just swing by. If they're not there, I'll swing by tomorrow. The next day, I'll find them there. But I don't have to drive an hour and a half. So that's where you want to kind of lean on Derek's method better. But I would find out when she's home, take some macaroons and some goodies and sit down and have a cup of coffee with her. But you're going to have to start asking the hard questions and find out what it is she wants to do with the property. Because right now, evidently she's in lockdown mode, and that happens to people. They won't make a decision. And one of the things I have on my IM sheet is I focus on the solution, not the problem. And right now she just has a problem, but she's not focused on the solution. And you got to get her to start looking at the solution. And that's best done face to face.
Chris, this is Mac. I dealt with a person like that, but in your estimation, is she competent to make a decision?
Competent, absolutely. She just just won't kick back a number, and I'm scared to get into any kind of a master lease on it just because the amount of rehab that needs done.
So she's indecisive. She's indecisive about
but I think she might. Yeah, sorry.
About money or financial thing. How about anything else in her life that you know about? I mean, if there's an outward.
She would like to buy. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I know she would like to buy. Part of the reason she wants all cash is she would like a house. She's getting older and she needs a house without steps going into it. That's one of her needs. But other than that, I mean, like I said, she still won't come up with a number. And I think like Bill, you were talking about the option. I think that might be something great because she can technically keep ownership, and being that she's procrastinating, it might be something to move forward with. But it's just scary to me with the amount of rehab that needs done.
So
50 to.
Is she living in it now?
No.
Oh,
This
okay.
was rental.
Okay.
And when you ask her why are you not making a decision, what does she say? Or do you even ask that question?
No, I do ask her. I have asked her what's stopping her, and she just, I don't know. I need more money, and I ask how much, and she won't tell me. I need all cash because part of the offer was the owner for the seller finance, and it always comes back to I need all cash, but I can't get a number back on how much cash. And at the same time, like I said, she did seem very interested in a long-term lease. So there's some fuzziness there because she needs all cash if she's selling it, but she seems like she'd be happy to lease it long-term too.
Have you tried to break it down on what she needs the money for? Itemize it?
She came back with the house without steps.
Just no round the world cruise or going to go see the kids or anything like that.
Nothing like that. No.
So Pete would come back with, in the event I can get you a house without steps, would you take that or would you trade?
That seems like about 12 levels above my pay grade.
So Chris, partner with someone that has more experience than you to help you with this deal. Be willing to give up part of the deal in order to learn. And I said that in the very beginning of this session is I was always willing to give up part of a deal to learn a technique to watch it in action.
Another thing, have you ever been on any of the exchangers Zoom calls? Because you could probably find someone that might have
Yeah,
a
I used to
line
do-
on that too. You know, that type of a house.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good call.
I'll
Chris,
tell
I'm
you
gonna-
what told me
What-
one time. He said, find someone who has a house in the place she wants to live so that you can try to get that house subject to, so you look for houses in the area, you know that. So, and then you trade her house for that house, and then you've got the built-in financing on the other side. Maybe not from her, but maybe from the house that you would get without the steps that she could move into. So you would pay, basically you would pay the payments on the house you would move into for the price that would be, you know, agreeable for the house you want from her. Since she won't give you owner financing, what she says, if she really wants a house without steps, you try to find that house and get owner financing on that house.
Right. This might be where I'd have to go with what Bill said and find somebody to partner with.
Yeah, whereabouts are you, Chris? You're in Lakeland?
And that's too many moving parts for a rookie.
Hey, Chris, so someone in your REIA, and again, you're gonna know who they are that you feel comfortable with, that has experience, and gray
My
hair,
mic
bald
quit
heads,
working
they've
on
done
you?
it before. I want you to partner with them, bring them into this deal to help you with it. But the same thing is you're letting this drag on, you're doing what she's doing. You're both doing the same thing. It's kind of like there's this elephant and we're not going to really deal with the elephant. Well, you need to deal with the elephant. So let's use, I'm going to go back to 209 Green Acre. That's the deal we covered tonight. And I'm going to give you the part of it, the beginning part that I wasn't able to talk about because of time. And so when I first saw this house, the owner was wanting $105,000, not 85. He wanted 105. And at the time, the property is only worth 90. And so we met at that Waffle House and I offered to pay him, I think it was the 90,000 owner financed. I take it back. I was going to pay him the $90,000 cash, or I'd pay him 105,000 owner financed. And he turned me down. He wanted the 105 cash. And so we shook hands. I said, just call me if you need any help. And about a year later, he called me up. We met again at the Waffle House and he accepted my $90,000 cash offer. So this was started off in, I think 2009. So this is now 2010. Well, the property had fallen in value. And I said, I can't do that. Now the house is only worth about $80,000, or I can pay $95,000 owner finance. And he goes, no, I want 90,000 cash. I couldn't do it. And we went another year. And then the house was down to like 70,000 and he wanted to take my $80,000 or $85,000 cash offer. And what that's off the table, you know, it's gone down again. So it was 4 years me working on that deal before I got it, but I wasn't mowing his grass every week either. I went there, I made my offer, make your number, find a number that works for you, give her a written offer. And if that doesn't work, move on. Don't stay in this circle. Move on. Go find another deal.
All right. Appreciate it.
And it's not my strategy really well,
right.
but this could be a time
Like that. Thank you.
to bring up some pain that we might be going in a down market. Rates are going up. You know, I've heard of people bringing articles, newspaper articles to the people and showing them, you know, so if she's waiting for higher and higher cash, like her time's up. If we
It's
are at
over.
the
It's
top of the
past.
market, yeah, you find those articles that show that and bring her some pain. And that might get her a little more motivated. But all right, let's move on to our last question so we can
But
do
nothing in the way of trying to structure it different.
Well, you've already said that she wants all cash. Okay, remember the teeter-totter? So there's 2 seats on the teeter-totter, price and terms. So she is firmly taking the term seat. She says, I want all cash. Okay, you get to name the price. That's how that works. She doesn't get to name the terms and name the price. She's telling you she wants all cash. Make her an all cash offer that works for you and say, this is the best I can do. Here's my cash offer based on what I know. I'd rather do it face to face where I can meet with her, get my questions answered, but I'm going to hand her a written offer and then say, I can't keep mowing your grass forever. You know, this, 2 more weeks and I'm done. I really want to buy the property, but we can't sit here in the doldrums, just bouncing around in the ocean, not going anywhere.
All right. I got you. Appreciate it.
And by the way, Chris, when you're making lots of offers, you don't have time to focus on this one deal that just sits around, like I said, in the doldrums and just bobs around. Because you have so many offers coming in, you make the offer, you move to the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. So when I'm door knocking, when I come back around 3 months later to a house, I may or may not stop there again based on, is the problem that made me stop there the first time still there or not? I rely on them to call me back up at some point in the future, but I'm always moving forward.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate it.
Okay, Adrian, let's go to the last question because it's getting up 10 o'clock in my bedtime.
All right. How many hours per deals door knocking do you currently get? Average over last year, average when starting, average in the middle of career, kind of. So what are some average deals?
I have no idea. So when I would come home when I was building the empire, I had to make 20. Well, I got new neighbors. I love being in a motorhome. Hey, Derek, I got new neighbors. They just pulled in.
I think they leave when they're next to you very often.
Hey, sorry, Adrian, I didn't write that very well. It's a grammar fail.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So the question is basically, hi, Bill. Great presentation. It's Andrew with Central Lending.
Hey, Andrew, on the great presentation, can you tell that to Derek again? Go ahead, so you can repeat it so Derek can hear.
Yeah, it broke up. I didn't hear shit. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so I think some people are, I think some people are going to want to know. I think it's just a reasonable question, myself included. A lot of investors, they're very KPI focused, right? I'm going to dial 20,000 phone numbers and I'm going to get 2,000 calls in and I'm going to get 35 appointments and I'm going to get 20 offers and then I'm going to get 4 contracts and that's going to be my month, and those 4 contracts are all worth 10,000, and I worked 30 hours a week to do this. These are sort of your numbers focused investors. You talked about the calculator and all that sort of thing, and so I feel like you would have a lot of anecdotes throughout your career where you'd be able to give us at least an idea of hey, because a lot of us have never done door knocking, so I think anecdotes would be useful. Like now at this point in my career, I'm a highly effective door knocker and I might do it 3 hours a day on average, and I might get 1 deal a week or whatever the case may be. But then at the start of your career, was it you're doing this 6 hours a day and you're getting 1 deal a month? Like, give us some type of idea of what the output was and what the results were like, I guess, when you started, middle of your career, and then present day.
Okay.
Andrew, wait, Bill. Andrew, you're expecting Bill to know what KPI means. He doesn't even know how to spell KPI.
No, I think just a very, very oversimplified anecdote.
And you'd have to know how to count real well to be able to get the KPIs written up. But we'll let Bill go ahead.
I still, on the KPI, I just heard, PI. So I was thinking about Derek just when I heard PI. Anyway, so you're putting way too much, trying to track way too much information when you're out door knocking that nobody does. You just can't. But let's go ahead and I'll tell you how I do track. This goes back to my Electrolux days. So I sold vacuums door to door for 18 years. And I learned when I was in college that if I did 3 good demonstrations, I would sell 1 machine. Okay. I had to sell 5 machines a week because I was on my own. I moved out when I was 18 and I was responsible for where I was living, all my expenses, my car, my college, everything I was paying for. That required 5 sales a week. And I needed 3 demos to make 1 sale. I didn't count how many doors I had to knock on to get an average demo. It's just, I knew I needed 15 demos a week. And I quickly realized it didn't matter how many demos I did a day. It was that I had to do 15 demos a week. So what I would do is I hit the ground running Monday morning, 9 a.m. I knocked on the first door and I would try to do 5 or 6 demos on Monday. And then I would try to do 5 or 6 demos on Tuesday. And that took me to somewhere between 10 to 12 demos. And then on Wednesday, somewhere about halfway, 3/4 of the way through the day, I had done my 15 demos, 15 good demos, and I was done with my week. The sales would come. The sales balanced out on average 5 a week, but I had to do my 15 really good demos. That's all that mattered were those stinking demos, not how many doors, not how many hours. That's just not how we're paid. We're not paid by the hour. We're paid by the deal. So now fast forward to real estate investing. When I became a real estate investor, starting off, I wanted to make 25 written offers a week. And however long that took, that's how long it took. Monday morning, 9 a.m., I would knock on the first door. And normally I could get somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 14 offers done the first day. And then on Tuesday, I would do about 10 to 12. And then usually on Wednesday was my cleanup day. I'd work anywhere from a quarter of the day to a full day. But sometime on Wednesday, I was done with my 25 written offers. And then the rest of the week was spent working on a horse ranch or rehabbing a house or meeting with friends or going to a seminar or anything else. But those 25 written offers came first and foremost. I didn't do anything else starting the week until those 25 demos were done. The 25 written offers were made. And so that's how I track my numbers. And I was going to, and I've had to call it off. But between the beginning of March and the end of August, I was going to go make 1,000 written offers in my 5-mile circle. And because of different reasons, I had to keep putting it off. And then finally, when we were together at REIA, I was going to come back from REIA is a thing we did in Kentucky about 3 weeks ago, where about 60 of us got together. We get together once a year with RVs, and some people stay on houseboats, but we just spend time together for about a week. Anyway, Kim said during the campfire session one night that she felt totally overwhelmed and there was too much on the plate. And then to add to that, I had a seminar coming up to fight property taxes. And I also had, I was going to start the 1,000 written offers. And she said, there's just no time for this. And she was very anxious about it. So I stopped it and I'll pick it back up. I still will do it, but just not right now. But my goal was I need 10 to 20 more investment properties. And I was willing to go make 1,000 written offers to get those 10 to 20 more investment properties. Now, I don't know what the ratio would be or not be. It's just, I needed 10 to 20 properties. And this is what I was willing to do. This was the price I was willing to pay to get there. And I felt sure if I did 1,000 written offers, I would find the 10 to 20 deals. So I hope that answers your question. It's not answering the way you wanted by using a time clock, but I used results, which were either demos or offers.
I think if you're doing 10, if you have a busy Monday, so what does the written offer mean? Does that mean you're leaving it in the mailbox or are you at the kitchen table presenting it in person?
If I put down, I'm willing to pay this for the house. So when you saw my canvas card and you saw a Teeter-Totter Offer on the back and I stuck it in the door, that's a written offer. Okay. Now, when I take my canvas card without writing anything on the back and I stick it in the door, That's not an offer. That's just an advertising that we buy houses. But as soon as I put pen to paper and say, this is what I'm willing to go do, then that's an offer.
I'll add there, Bill, you told me once to never find a reason to not write an offer. So if Bill talks to someone in their driveway, they're getting an offer.
Yes. I've been out with Derek Dombeck, and people from his REIA, and we were out door knocking, and his daughter, McKenna, who I just love to death. I mean, she was, I think, 12 at the time, and she made a written offer door knocking. Is that right, Derek? You're muted, buddy.
Yeah, she was 11, just before 12. So I would say she was probably 11 and 10 months when you did that. And I also remember at that same event that you got F-bombed and flipped off from a homeowner, didn't you? On that, which may have been a setup. I'm not sure. That may have been a setup.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell David this story because he'll appreciate it. So Derek looked at me. I was knocking on a homeowner's door, and they weren't home, I don't think. And Derek said, I want to get a good picture of you door knocking. Can you stand here? And he put me on the sidewalk. And David, you know, if I start positioning you to take a picture, you should never do it. Well, Derek's the same way. So he had me stand. I was standing right next to the living room window, and they took the picture. What I didn't know was the homeowner had put a sign on green construction paper above my head that said basically F you. And I think it said like, get off my lawn or something, but they put on the window. So they have me with a picture being taken with this disgusting sign in the background. And the whole group found it was very funny. And the homeowner turned out to be a very good friend of Derek's. Can you imagine?
Oops.
Bill, can we go back to the person who had to travel an hour and a half and was mowing the lawn on the property? And
you're David Tilney. You can do anything you want to.
Well, Mary and I were out walking, and my cell phone just didn't work. Wonderful 5G in Colorado Springs downtown didn't work. So, I wanted to look at that again because I had two thoughts. One was, I think the first, is that person on still? Because I'd like to have her unmuted that I can ask, or him, I'm sorry. Number one question is, could you occupy the house in its current situation or not?
I would. Would I expect somebody else to? Absolutely not.
Okay, because I think you could lease that house under some terms and conditions and agree that all the lease payments go to fix up until you get it to the position that you deem as acceptable. That's one of the things that enters my mind. The other thing that enters my mind is, in my mind, I would not travel an hour and a half to go see this woman. I assume the house is where you live, where the woman lives is some other place. Is that correct? She's the hour and a half away. Yeah, Jack Miller always used to say, if you're in the ocean drowning, I'll throw you a life jacket, but I'm not going to jump in and drown with you. And so I think the burden is on her to come see you. And you want her to put time into it, because if she puts time into it, you got her. Whereas if you go, she can cut you off at any point in time. So the two thoughts that go in my mind is, you need to have a meeting with her, and you need to suggest she come look at her house and see what you've done. And when she's there, say, okay, I understand. Now she's living someplace else, so she doesn't need another place right now today, but you can lose her less than she's losing with a vacant house by leasing that house and improving that house with what you would pay her until you brought it up to snuff where you could rent it. And for doing that, you would presumably get an option on the upswing in the house, the potential upswing 10 years down the road. And I think that might be something that would really make sense for you.
Okay. Now, when you say an option 10 years down the road, how do you present that? I understand what you're saying about, I'll pay you X amount of dollars for lease, but that's all going to go into the house in the meantime. Now, how do you present the option as far as
Well, I mean,
10 years down the road? How does that work?
well, she doesn't really want to lease a house. She wants to sell the house, and she's got a price in mind that she wants to sell it for. So in that case, since she really doesn't want to lease it and she wants to sell it, you say, congratulations, you've just sold your house. Now we're going to close 10 years from now. Here, shake hands. That's it. That's how you do that.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I'm going to
Okay.
improve the value of your house and generate some income your way. But the first amount of funds that come across from this house are going into improving it. And maybe you put a limitation on it that the first 6 months you get no payments. She's getting no payments now, so who are you kidding? And you know, how much is it going to take to make the house presentable? That's a question I'm asking you. How much?
Doing the work myself, probably 40.
So it's not just paint and carpet. It's more than that. Is that correct?
Correct. It's almost a tear down. It's just about a tear down.
Well, then it's going to take longer. And I think you tell her, I'm cutting the lawn. I'm going to fix a house. It's going to take me a year or some period of time before you're going to see a dime. But that's more than you're going to receive now based on what's happening. And your property is just wasting away, and it's going to be worth less and less and less. And congratulations, you just sold your house. We're going to close on it 10 years from now. And here's the price. But you need her to come to you. You shouldn't go to her. She's not very motivated at this point. And if she won't come see you when she's got the problem, you don't.
Love that.
Chris, is this a frame house or block?
All right.
You're not coming through very well.
Well, I appreciate it.
Chris,
It's
is
a
this
frame house.
Frame house. I had my first one was like that, and the whole time I was thinking for $2,000 I could have the lot scraped and put up a new one.
Yeah, frame house. Yeah, it's almost at that point.
Hey, Chris, you got real bad reception where you are. You just kind of cut in and out as you go. So it's hard to hear you, and it's hard to have a conversation. You're just having a tough time with your connection.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I just changed locations. I'm hoping that, but
We can hear you now.
Hold your left arm up in the air.
Okay,
and put your left leg straight out. I think your reception will be much better.
And turn around and do the hokey pokey.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, don't turn on your video, Chris, because you don't have
Simon didn't
reception anyway.
even say though.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
okay.
Just natural face. So there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, just think about it. You can do a lease with her under some terms and conditions. I know a guy in some state in the US, and I'm not prepared to tell you where because you may know too much information, who found a property that was not occupied, contacted the owners and said, I'd like to put some money across your hands in your palm. And the owner said, don't put any money in our hands, just pay the property taxes, the insurance, and take care of the house. And he did that. And that was his lease. He had a 5-year lease that was the terms of his lease. And it renewed for like 5-year terms. Well, down the road, the owner died and the son has dementia. And so they've lost this house. No one knows the house exists. And yes, he doesn't have good title, but his sole cost on the house is paying the property taxes and the insurance and maintaining it. And he's master leased it and he's subleasing it and getting a spread. That's not all bad. So if you can figure out, if you got to put the money you're going to pay her into fixing it up, negotiate that. She's getting nothing now. I'll earn you more than you're earning right now. You won't have to pay to cut the lawn. You won't have to pay for utilities. I'll take care of that stuff. Does that make sense? No, no response.
He has bad cell phone service, but yeah, it makes tons of sense. And Adrian, was that the last
Great stuff.
question?
Yes. So we are going to wrap it up now. It's Bill's bedtime,
Okay.
but we will stay on here a little bit later if we just want to chat. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. This was a fantastic meeting. And
Right.
Liz always, Chris is partially back.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Chris, you're about 45 seconds behind us.
David, you know, that sounds like a really good, for adverse possession, that person you just told us about. That's an adverse, that's what that is.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
possibility. That's a possibility. You're right. 7 years and
Oh,
private title.
yeah, openly occupied.
And you
Yeah,
fix the major concern.
All right. Well, I'm going to continue wrapping it up and we can chat afterwards. Bill, thank you so much for being here. Look, you have 26 people still on at 10:20 at night, and everyone is still paying attention. We didn't lose almost anyone. I don't really know why. Derek would not agree with this, but no, for real, thank you. Everyone say thank you to Bill. And
Great job, Bill.
hopefully we
Thank you.
see you
Thank you,
at
all
What
three,
Box.
all three of you.
Yeah, and I also want to thank Derek for helping me out. Also David, also Adrian, and thank Liz for 3 Z's too for letting me do this. I enjoyed it. I hope to see you all at What Box. You have my phone number if you're working on a deal or a structure and you're thinking, what do I do? Feel free to give me a phone call. I'm as you can see, I'm kind of harmless here.
Adrian,
Yes,
Adrian,
sir.
can I buy a $300 option for your incriminating photos of Bill? And then Bill
Very
would
good.
will be willing to trade